Welcome to Even Tacos Fall Apart, a podcast with real stories, real struggles, real hope. I'm MommaFoxFire, and I am so glad you are here today. Be honest though, you've probably picked up your phone in the middle listening to this already. There's no judgment because mine is sitting right next to me too. I put it on silent every time I record. But that's what we're getting into today: attention spans and navigating the noise. Our brains are getting hijacked constantly, and most of us have just accepted it as normal. You sit down to read one email, and 45 minutes later, you're watching a video of a dog wearing sunglasses, and you genuinely could not tell anyone how you got there. That's not a personal failure or being lazy or undisciplined. There's neuroscience, actual neuroscience behind why that keeps happening. And it's happening to all of us, not just the kids who grew up with a phone in their hand before they could walk. We live in a time where everything is designed to grab your attention and hold it for as short a burst as possible before yanking you somewhere else. Notifications, autoplay, the endless scroll, it's built that way on purpose. And when your brain gets used to that kind of constant stimulation, everything else, the quiet stuff, the stuff that really matters, work that takes focus, conversations that take patience, relationships that take presence, all of that starts to feel unbearably slow, like your brain is bored just existing in real time. That's a huge problem, and it's affecting how we work, how we parent, how we show up for the people we love, and honestly, how we feel about ourselves when we can't seem to focus the way we used to. Today's guest has spent years studying exactly this. He has built a career blending psychology, neuroscience, and mindset coaching, working with everyone from musicians to CEOs, helping people break through the mental noise and take back a little bit of control. He's got a book coming out called Navigate the Noise, and the conversation we had gets into some stuff that surprised me. We talk about the science of anger and how it really lasts in your body for not very long. We talked about neuroplasticity and how small, almost stupid, simple changes in your daily routine can start rewiring your brain. And we get personal, really personal, about therapy, grief, and what it looked like and what it took for him to get his own mind back. This is not about shaming yourself for picking up your phone too much. It's aimed at helping to understand what's actually happening in your head and figure out what you can do about it starting today. So settle in, this conversation could change how you think about your own attention and maybe give you a little bit of your focus back too. Here's my conversation with David on attention spans and navigating the noise. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Mental Health Monday here on Even Tacos Fall Apart. Super excited for our topic today. We are going to be, as I hit my mic, that's okay. We're going to be talking about attention spans and navigating the noise. And I was just chatting with David about, sometimes we get a little bit distracted, and that's definitely something that is not new to this crowd. So it's all good. But David is here to join us today. So welcome, David, so much. Thank you for being here. Appreciate you just taking the time out to join us.
Of course. I'm psyched to be here. Excited to get into some conversation tonight.
Yeah, so a little bit about David. He is someone who has made it his mission to help people cut through the chaos of modern life and really get back in control of their own minds. He's the founder of Another Angle Consulting, where he blends psychology, neuroscience, and mindset coaching to help creatives, professionals, and young adults break through mental and emotional barriers. We're going to talk about that a little bit tonight as well. His work has been featured in Artist Weekly and LA Wire, and he's also the author of a mindset book that makes neuroscience genuinely accessible. We're going to talk about that too, with no PhD required. So today we're diving into, like I said, shrinking attention spans and how to navigate the noise. I'm really excited to get into that. But before we do, I want to let y'all know a couple of things. We have a question queue open. If you have any questions while we're here and live, feel free to go ahead and pop those into the chat, and we'll make sure that we get to them as we are joined up here today. And then also, if you are looking to connect with David, I've got a couple of links where you can do that. I'm going to post those into the chat right now. Feel free to click through on those and make sure you say hi once you get there. Like a couple of posts, comment on a couple of posts. That's really what makes that difference. So hop on in there. But yeah, we're gonna get into this conversation tonight. So, David, I would love to know, how did you get where you are today? What made you become interested in specializing in mental health?
So, great question. Thank you so much for having me. Really, it all started, it was a happy accident from trauma growing up. And my dad was a Methodist minister. And so I grew up a son of a preacher. Essentially, he started making really bad decisions, started acting out of character. And we didn't know what was going on. I was 8 at the time. And he cheated on my mom. And my
Mm,
mom was a stay at home mom who had given up her career to be a stay at home mom because the way he was as a minister, it was free housing and his salary. So she did literally gave up everything. And he started cheating and doing things to really disrespect and hurt her. And she had all the strength in the world that she said, I'm not going to handle this. I'm not going to let this happen. She found a way to make it work. And I go back through, the odds of that are wild, of what we got through, how me, my brother, and my sister all have very developed good lives because of the sacrifices and how much she gave to us. But to come back to what answer the question there, my dad ended up being diagnosed after the fact with manic depressive and bipolar disorder. And he
mm,
was going through life without medication and not realizing he had a very, very serious illness. And he got into a situation in life where I think we all do at some point or another, that things get really hard and we get our backs into a corner. And man, our stress levels are at another level. Our cortisol's just going. We are pure anxiety, running on that, not sleeping. And we tend to make bad decisions when we're in those states of mind. And that's what my dad got into. And I'm not making excuses for him. I held anger and resentment towards him for years, but learning neuroscience and learning how our brains work, it really broke down to me of, in its simplest form, he was a scared person who made a bad choice and he was in a
yeah.
really awful spot. And honestly, I've made that same, not obviously that same decision that he made, but I've made mistakes in those states. And it became a real pillar of my coaching, of what I do with people, of we try to work through the most basic breakthrough I think most people can really connect with. And I'll try it with you right away. If you're game for it,
Sure.
name me 3 really great decisions you made when you were spitting mad, angry as anything, just things falling apart and you don't know what to do.
Oh, I can only name one. That was divorce.
Okay, all right. Yeah, and you literally, it's every show that I'm on, I love to share that. And it's one of the few things we have so much going on in life that almost it feels like nobody can agree on anything, or people
Yeah.
are always at odds with each other. But this is 100% that I've asked, and no one's been able to give me 3 really great decisions on the fly.
Yeah.
But then the flip side of it is, can you name me 3 things you regret when you were really mad, that you've said, you've done, you've texted, and like that's
Easy.
something we can all name probably 5 to 10 off the literally just off the cuff. And for me, I realized, oh man, like it's really simple. It's once we diagnose it and figure it out within ourselves and our thought patterns, but just don't make decisions when you're in those heightened states, anxiety,
Yeah.
anger, sadness, not sleeping, go through. And it's something that I've started coaching, and I like to share it because it's something that I think could be helpful to anybody. Of if you're in that spot and you are ruminating and you're just getting angry and you're like in that kind of state or that anxiety, and you could send that text or talk to someone, what you probably should do is try to ask yourself, have I eaten? Am I hungry? Have I slept? Am I sleepy? And what's really the problem here? Like, why am I really
Yeah.
upset? And if you can kind of coach yourself to do that, and I like to preface it with this, is it's not an on off switch. I'm a perfectionist and I really like, I've said this for years, and it's the truth of every coach, every teacher, anybody I've ever worked with, boss. I let them know, hey, if I make a mistake, I am 100 times harder on myself than you could ever be. So you could yell all
Yeah.
you want, but I was like, that will have almost no effect. I'm going to be so much harder on myself of like just making that mistake. So when we're in those kind of things, I learned the bad side of, I would get angry and I would just immediately beat myself up. I'm like, no, you did it again. You lost your temper. What's going on? Losing your temper is not a problem. It's how you act and what you do with it, and realizing we all get angry. We all have stuff that will
Yeah.
raise our temperature through the roof. It's, do we act or let that control? Do we let that situation control us? And have this thing that really worked for me. And I don't know if it will work for everybody, but I like to share it because of how helpful it was for me. Usually, when someone, if it's a person who really gets you angry, if it's a friend, spouse, or someone in your relationship, whatever, they tend to. It's something on that. It used to be a personal thing that usually like then you're going at them. So I tend to say, or I like to, someone asked me at one point, they're like, Dave, what did they, why are they under your skin? Why are they, they control you? They really, they've got control over your emotions that just because of whatever they're doing, you lose control and you're making bad decisions because of how they're acting.
Yeah.
He's like, "You're letting someone have that power over you?" And I was like, "No, nobody has power over me. I'm independent. I always felt that." And he's just like, "Then why are you doing? Like, what, like, what's the point?" And it's a lot of that of like when we let the anger roll. And one of the tests that I did is I had a problem with, and I think a lot of people do with driving of just if someone cuts you off, I would just go 0 to 100. I'd start cursing. I'm just like,
Yeah.
what is, and that was one of the things I'd really beat myself up on because I'm like, I'm trying to be calm. I'm trying to like live peacefully, have like these really good intentions, good energy. And then someone cuts me off and I lose it. And I'm like, I'm not where I need to be. And this is where I say it's not an on off switch. It's fine to get angry, feel the emotion, feel what's happening in that moment. And the neuroscience proves it actually has an effect on your brain for 75 to 90 seconds. So that's normal. That's in your chemistry for
Yeah.
75 to 90 seconds. You're feeling something. That's okay.
Hmm.
But outside of that 90 seconds, it's your baggage. It's what you're going through. So anything you do outside of that. And so I started setting a timer for myself, 5 minutes. I can be angry for that. And I'm competitive. So I made it a game with myself of after I did 5 minutes, I'm like, I think I could do 4.5. And I naturally just cut it down. And that's where I love to talk to people and like really say, like, incorporate that into your life because a lot of us get frustrated when something doesn't happen. We all expect we're geniuses and everything's just going to switch on and go 0 to 100 and everything's going to be great all of a sudden. Whenever you have changes in life, you're going to have little setbacks. And I always like to call it the catapult effect of so many times when you're trying to build to something bigger or be happier or be more mindful, anything that you're going through, you're going to be tested and have these things that do set you back. And it's not the problem that you did get set back or you get knocked down or you let your emotions get the best of you in the moment. How fast can you rebound? How much resiliency can show? And what's really cool is if you can master that, you've mastered something that some of the biggest CEOs in our country, in our world, who are literally beyond successful billionaires on billionaires, it's what they've mastered. It's okay to make mistakes. It's
Yeah.
how quick can you get up? How resilient are you? That's what's important. And it's become a society. And we were talking a little bit, and we'll get more into the attention span stuff. But with everything with social media, everything became a competition. And it
Hmm.
became people used to talk about keeping up with the Joneses with neighborhoods and houses you live in or something like that, that was an effect. And then social media happened and it's your pictures and how great everything is all the time. And if you're living a good life, that could be happy to watch. But if you're going through stuff, man, it's not realistic. And
Right.
I try to like go through them. It's everybody's highlights reel. Like people, like very rarely are people willing to talk. And that's why I love that you're doing what you do because this is what life is. We all have these moments. Everything isn't perfect. It's not this picture perfect. Everything's great. We all have these moments where we doubt ourselves, where we don't feel great about a decision we made or how we're feeling or how we look. And it's normal. Like we feel that
Yeah.
and we like, and some of us, I mean, I'm an ADHD person. So I have the overthinking to another level. And it's something that I could I used to whine about it and complain, and I always tried to like find blame or victimize someone else. And it was always well, they did this, and I should be able to do this because this person's doing this. And
Mm.
it got to the point of accountability for me of, I got sick of being reliant on whatever someone else was doing, or I could be okay as long as they're doing it. I'm like, no, like what's good for me? What's okay for me? And when you do that, you realize a lot of your problems end up going away because if you're always pointing the finger and it's always somebody else's fault, it's a low frequency blaming situation. So you're literally putting out into the world. You're in the low frequency, low zone. And most people, I'm like, that's not what they are. That's not what they really feel. They might do that for a moment, but that's a small piece of their life, what they're going through. So it's just one of those things. I always say, be patient with people. If you see someone having a bad time out or do something, try to do something kind to them because they're just going through it in that moment. And that moment of kindness may be the reason why they don't make the bad decision later that night or whatever they're going through.
Yeah. Talking about the traffic and getting that anger and everything built up. It took me a while. Of course, for a long time I would just get mad and all of that. But now I try to be like, okay, you know what? maybe their mom's in the hospital. Maybe their wife's in the hospital having a baby and they're trying to get there and they're not thinking about me. Why should I continue thinking about them? It's fine. It's not going
Yeah.
to impact my life unless I actually get in a car accident because of it or something. It's not going to impact my life further than this.
Yeah.
And you're giving it too much control over yourself. But I like what you're saying about your brain holds that for a certain amount of time because
Mhm.
if you get into that heightened emotional state, not necessarily because of something bad happening even that someone else did, but even if you're just really excited or you're really relieved or you're really anything, any big strong emotion, which everyone goes through a gamut of emotions all the time.
Mhm.
Whatever strong thing you're feeling, it sounds like if you give it that 90 seconds to really just be, then maybe
Mhm.
you can make that conscious effort to move forward into it. I like that. I like that.
Absolutely. And I mean, it really is something I encourage and I try to push to people if they can find the good. It's
Yeah.
as a society, I mean, I own this on myself. It's something I still actively struggle and I've gotten better with, but I'm not perfect by any means.
Mhm.
The overthinking with the ADHD of like I'll get into really negative thought pattern loops. And I coach people how to break them, and I'm like, I coach and I still actively own that. I'm like, hey, I'm going through it.
Yeah.
I know that this is still something, but I just got so prone to the negative because I had trauma growing up and a lot of different things that kind of all got thrown in, and then had a really tough, rough stretch. And I was like, everything was just this high cortisol, high stress constantly. And I'm like, okay, how can we bring it down? Because in my mind, I was always calculating the worst case scenario like all
Mhm.
right so all these bad things happen to me so I'm always going to expect bad and what I was doing and I realize now how dangerous it is like just to what you bring about in your life, not to say that you cause anything directly, but it's the energy that you will attract in that moment of
Yeah.
when you're in that low side you are just so like everything is all negative, all just clenched. And I always say the flight or fright of our brains look no different on a scan than an animal's brain being hunted in the wild just when we have anxiety.
Mhm.
So, like, our brains are just in this heightened kind of state all the time if we're angry and going through something. So, yeah, the ruminating, catching the negative, I always thought to that negative. And if you think, and I challenge everyone, I'm like, do a little bit of the positive, just like a small bit. Like it doesn't have to be toxic positive. You don't have to be fake positive overnight if you're someone who is just kind of like going through it or having a situation. But just take whatever situation you're going through. I'm sure you've calculated two or three ways of how it could go wrong. Just do one of how it could go right. Like what
Yeah.
happens if it all works out? And why I say it's a dangerous thing is our brain has something that's called the RAS, the reticular activating system. So I like to use the example of if you've ever been shopping for a new car and you end up buying a new car and you really didn't know that brand or that the make and model of the vehicle prior to. I always say like I did it with a Subaru Forester. I bought a white Subaru Forester. At the time, I didn't love it because I was like, you know what? I've never really seen many of these on the road. I don't know if I just wasn't sure. But then, sure enough, as soon as I go on the highway, I see them everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's because our brain is primed for it. So our brain literally is like a real good of you put your attention to something and it's going to look or find for it. So it's why people say like something really random out of nowhere and you look and your eyes are, it's like, where's Waldo? You're just zoning to try to find that exact thing. So a lot of one of the bigger problems I think in society is we live such high stress, high anxiety, high cortisol lives that
Mhm.
everything is tiered to that negative, and we're coaching our brains just by living life that we're in this loop of hey, everything is wrong or everything is rough or bad, and we expect the worst when we're in those situations. If you can flip some of that to the positive of again, how can it go right? How can you do that? Our brain has that RAS. So if you are actively looking for bad things, negative things, you will attract that, or you at least your
Yeah.
blinders are finding that. Whereas the flip side of if you start looking for really good things, opportunities, things like that, it ends up being. I like to use it this way as like so talking about like stress and like what where you're going of it. So think about the way you see your vision, right? So when you're really stressed, I'll use this example. I think you probably went through it when you were a kid. I'm not leaving myself out here too much. So when we're in like elementary school, right? and we're in either English or history or science class, and you have a teacher who didn't really want to teach that day, and everyone's just reading from the book and taking turns as
Mm-hmm.
you go through. Okay. And someone's reading, and then you're keeping in line. Like, I would always have my finger on the paragraph ready to go. I'm like, all right, I'm going to find, like, hear those last three words and I'm ready to go. I'm not going to be laughed at or made fun of or
Yep.
whatever. And then I lose track of something, whatever. I get distracted by the clock or anything that's going on in the moment. And then I get called on it, and it's just that. And how narrow is your vision in that? You can barely read sentences, and you're trying to find just like the pot of like just looking so little. And that's because of the flight or fright. When you're in stress like that, our vision is narrowed. The calmer you are, and think about, like, if you're really relaxed, you go to a spa, and after you have a massage, and you get up from that, you feel like you could see everything. You feel like euphoric when you walk out, because everything, your vision, everything is calmed down in your body, is really relaxed, and your vision is bigger. You see more naturally whenever you're not stressed. Same thing as if you're in a car accident, someone cuts you off, you get blinders on. You don't see
Yeah.
everything around you. Whereas when you're calm, you see, you're looking at trees, you're kind of like taking in everything that's going on. So if we can do that in our everyday lives, how effective could that be? Because if we're
Mm-hmm.
living in stress all the time, we're trying to find good opportunities with really narrow focus. If we can switch up what we do and think a little bit more positively, you'll start noticing a shift of, you don't feel as negative or tired or drained, and like all those kind of like similar type things. You start feeling energized, you start feeling happier, start living in the present. And that's one of the cool things, is when you're really able to master this. I had and this is something that I fixed, and I feel fortunate. I'm 42, and I'm like, I think I've got the rest of my life because I was able to figure this out young enough. And part of the reason I wrote my book is I want it geared towards teens who went through essentially everything with the COVID. Like, that switched
Yeah.
everything when we talk about attention span, and like how that's shortened. I wanted to be like, anyone who can kind of understand this, I wanted to put it in layman's terms of, these are active things we can do just for our brain every day that will help us. And
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to share something that I try to share around as much, because this is something that I know people like hacks or quick trigger things that can have a quicker effect, because you want to see kind of results right away. So anybody listening to this, or anybody who's going to watch this, I challenge you that for the next week, don't change your bed schedule whenever you typically go to bed. 10 minutes before, when you're about to like lay down, go through right before you fall asleep, go no phone, and think about truly three things that you're grateful for. And then from those three things that you're grateful for, think about moments growing up that had nostalgia for you, whether it was something with your family,
Mm.
something with a loved one, someone from high school, going out to the prom, going to wherever, anything that really like got you like psyched up. Think about that for that first part of the 10 minutes. Slowly breathe, just breathe in, breathe out of your mouth, just feel comfortable, get as relaxed as possible, and think about tomorrow or the next week. What do you want to accomplish? What are your problems that you're facing, and how can you fix them? And don't think in the negative, just think of how you could solve them. And the neuroscience behind this is I call it last 10, first 10. Your brain is in a partial theta state in those last 10 minutes. That's why you get sleepy. And it's similar, like yeah, like that, you get drowsy is a good word for it. So when you're in that drowsy feeling, your brain is partially theta, or more theta than what it was when you're active. And so when you're in that partial theta state, if you ever heard the whole thing of, when you first wake up in the morning, go to the mirror and say your affirmations, say that you love yourself, and like that, all that type of stuff. And like, I remember the whole SNL, you are great, you're wonderful, and gosh darn it, you can be somebody. And like, having all that, I know I'm saying the words all wrong, but that's just the cadence of what it was. And, but like, so like, I saw, like, I've always seen that. And the science behind that, or the neuroscience behind that, is that, again, the first 10, just like the last 10, brain is in partial theta. So when you first wake up, don't open up your phone to your problems. Like, that's, so many people were in this same repetitive cycle. And I talk to people, and it's this common thread of people who aren't miserable. Their lives aren't horrible. They have solid lives, but they're just not happy, and they don't know where to find the happiness. And it's literally finding these little things of, start thinking of how things could go right. You're going to have a little bit more positivity in your day. You're going to feel
Yeah.
more inclined to open the door or hold the door when you're getting coffee in the morning. And when someone shows an act of kindness, it really has that trickle down effect and that pay it forward effect of, it really can make the difference of so many things. I can't tell you how many days when I was down, and I was never at that point of like suicidal, but I was just like in such down moods. And I might have been really sad for a while longer if someone wasn't really kind to me at a restaurant, or like just someone went out of their way to do the right thing, or say the right thing. I traveled shortly after COVID. I traveled and I wrote a lot of music, and I was working with musicians across the country. And really, I got a musician who I manage out in New Zealand. So truly across the world. Um, it was the cool thing about COVID. We were able to really interconnect with people I never would
Mhm.
have talked to otherwise. Like musicians who only wanted to work in a studio, we were all resigned to. We worked in our home studios, and that was if you didn't do it, you weren't making music. So it was just one of these things that I really connected, and like it made me realize like I was a big person. I would watch the news every day. I was raised that way of like always like being educated, knowing what's going on. No matter what side of the aisle you're on, I would watch news and I was getting just how awful and bad and terrible everything is, all in these different parts of the
Yeah.
USA. And I was like, I went to like 8 or 10 states in that time period, and I'm like, I saw nothing but kindness of like, I'm seeing people and around, and so it's one of those things where I've really started encouraging. I'm like, people like try to put down your phone. Like there are people out there trying to connect who not everyone's all that bad. And it's the more I look out there is I was like, there's just so many really good quality people who are just trying to do right in the world and do the right
Right.
thing. And so there's so many more of that type of people out there than you'd probably be led to believe. And the more you lean into this, man, you start realizing there are other people who are like in this thing where it's not that they had anything or they didn't get like a huge sum of money that changed their life. It's just purely they're living happier. And really ranted there. There was something where I started with, and I'll finish it here.
That's
I'm coming
okay.
back to it, I promise. So I use the example of a lot of people in life. If you had something bad happen in your past, and then you stress about because of those things that went bad, I'm going to agonize about the future and put that onto the future, assuming that's going to happen because of the thought of if I think or if I assume it's going to happen and I prepare myself, it won't hurt. It's we
Right.
kind of put this barrier around ourselves when you've been through trauma or you've had something that hurt you that we kind of it's a natural reaction of that's where you go. And I did that for ages. And I used this example. I worked on an artist who I unfortunately can't name under NDA, but a pretty big artist. And I was very fortunate that I was a writer on a couple really like songs on a big album. And it made it for me. It was like, for me, that was my dream. That was like everything coming true. And I realized one of the craziest things through that experience of I found out, I think it was February, and I think the album came out sometime that fall. And so February, I find out a couple of my songs are on the album. So I'm thrilled. So my birthday's at the end of March. So that's like a month and a half later. And then we're talking like in the fall. So 8, 9 months after that, after finding out that news of when the release would come. And it was awesome for 2 weeks. And then after that, I was like, what's next? And
Yeah.
then I thought about it, and the sad thing, and I think a lot of people live this life and don't really realize it, was I looked back and I didn't enjoy any of the present through those 8 months, 9 months. I can't tell you anything that happened, positive, negative, in
Mm.
between. I was so traumatized by my past, and I finally got so excited about something in the future. I actively wished that time away. Not knowingly, but like I just act like I didn't know what I was doing, but I don't remember any of that time.
Yeah.
And because of that constant looking to the past and anticipating the future, you totally miss the present. You're not in the moment. You're not doing whatever. And goes back to that. Drop the phone if you can. Like find times to put like give it a break, and it will just really open up so many more lanes and so much more to your just well being and thought pattern. The phone alone, it's one of those things we talk about attention spans. It's brought down our attention span a ton. That
Yeah.
whole just COVID sector, it was this like crazy stat of our attention span was it's why like Super Bowl commercials were like 30 minutes or sorry, 30 seconds. Sorry, not minutes. So 30 seconds. And that was just because that was the around what a human's normal attention span was at the time. Our attention span now is at like 8.5 seconds.
Mhm.
So like this, like that 30-second benchmark, that was like right before the iPhone or like maybe the iPhone 8 at that point. So that's where you look back and like we've had that. And the crazy drop was it was like to get from like 30 to 19, and I could be quoting this wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. It went from like 30 to 19. That took like 30 years. It like took a really long
Wow.
time to like get like down to that 11 seconds. And then it's gone like 19 to 8 in the last 12 years, which is all social
Yeah.
media and the phones and that side of it. So again, I use it. I do it. I'm the first person to say that I'm not a, I get that I talk out of both sides of it, but I'm one of the things of it's like having candy and eating that all the time and not actually having like a balanced meal. We've
Mhm.
got to like know our limits with it. And some people just don't, and they don't apply that. And it's just like, they'll have it out all the time. And it really does a ton on your health of like, you can't really think straight and you get, so the brain side of it is like, it's cheap dopamine and you get used to that. We used to really have delayed gratification. That's the other thing that's scary to me now of, I don't know who has delayed gratification evermore. Everything is, you got to have it now. We've got to have all the
Yeah.
episodes of the show right now. We can't wait. We don't want to wait weeks, and we don't want to get into that. And everything became so instant that when you do that over time, it's the human condition. Unfortunately, is as humans, our bodies, we're naturally lazy. If we can find an easy way to do something, we're going to do it that way. And so it's finding that balance of what can we do. Um, yeah, I'm rambling a bit here, but I'll let you jump
It's
back
okay.
for a second there.
So I want to go back to what you said about the 10 minutes before bed piece.
Mhm.
And I've heard the gratitude. Obviously, that's probably been said 1,000 times of gratitude before bed, gratitude when you first wake up, spend that 10 minutes without your phone. All of that is things that I've heard. The thing that you said that I hadn't heard before was the nostalgia piece. The like, think about something from your childhood that you loved. Think about something
Mhm.
that brought you joy. Think about something that brings you a lot of nostalgia. And actually, just recently, we had a guest, we were talking about music and mental health and music nostalgia, how music from your childhood can also bring you a lot of that joy and everything.
Mhm.
So, but that was an interesting piece. Is there some what's behind the kind of that part of the nostalgia? What does that do for you?
So I'll start with an opposite example, but
Mhm.
you're 100% right on. Do you have, say you're in high school and if you had any type of semi-serious relationship or someone you really liked and you did spend time together and it didn't work out.
Mhm.
Did you have a song together?
Oh, I'm sure. I don't remember what they are.
But
I'm
shortly
sure we
after, if
did.
that song came on, would you skip it off real quick? It's because your
Yeah.
body remembers. So your body
Yeah.
remembers that, and it also remembers the good things. So it's when you walk through that side, and there's actually a really cool neuroscience thing on top of it with gratitude that is, you're like, most people always know that. They know the deep breaths. Deep breaths
Yeah.
regulate your whole body. And what it is
Mhm.
doing is, we have our energy centers, and you can look into that on the side thing. But the main one, obviously, what we know: brain, heart, stomach. And when you go through something good or bad, if you're really up and you have a huge high, your brain, you're euphoric because you have that feeling where your heart just feels so light and just feels so full. And
Yeah.
then your stomach just has no anxiety. Everything's just great in the world. But when you feel that flip side of, you feel like everything's falling apart, is your thoughts start worrying, and your brain starts going like in a circle and like crazy. And then that makes your heart beat really fast. And then your stomach starts twisting. And it's like, so it's that opposite effect of, how can we really like biohack our bodies and know, and this will be individual really for a lot of people. What can we do on each thing? So the nostalgia of music is, it jumps into your body, remembers that like negative, that positive.
Yeah.
So when you go back to good times, like that's, I actively tell people, go through shows that you love, movies that you loved as a kid. Like it's, have a night of week where you throw that on because you just feel good. You like go back to, your body remembers being that younger self, and it has
Yeah.
that side of it. So you'll always have those ties. But to jump to the gratitude thing, I'm ping ponging a bit. On the gratitude side is the same part of our brain that processes anxiety, fear, depression. I say all the nasty emotions, anything on that negative side where you're just not yourself or not your happiest. The same part of your brain that processes that is the same part that processes gratitude. And it's kind of like one in, one out. So that is a way that literally you can slow down your anxiety. Again, I
Mhm.
would always say, if you see a doctor for it, talk to a doctor. I'm not saying that this is a cure, but this is something like deep breaths in the moment. It's a way for you to try to brain catch it, essentially like tag your brain so you're actively looking for that, of when you feel this, okay, instead of how everything could go wrong, I'm really grateful for my kids. I'm so like, I'm grateful that I'm alive right now, that I'm experienced this, that I'm not like, the worst case scenario hasn't happened to me. I'm here.
Mhm.
So it's having that type of moment. You can actually stop your anxiety, at least for that moment. It just stops the cycle. And for a lot of people, it, like, I always experience it. For me, it feels like a hurricane that I can't stop. That once
Mhm.
it's like, if I get triggered, then it's like, I feel like a shock, and I'm like, you get that deep breath, and then it's just, everything just starts going like super fast. And that is a natural way. If you talk about gratitude, is it slows everything back down. Of, you feel the
Yeah.
spinning slow, and you like, it's still maybe spinning a bit, but you just like, you just feel more in control. And it's just not that. I always say uncontrollable hurricane is the best way to like explain it on my end. And I'm like, I'm able to slow the storm down. I'm able to go from category 4 to category 2 pretty quick if I can think of that. And it takes a while. And it's one of those, again, not an on off switch. Like, we're going to have really bad moments or things that rock us, and you don't think to go to that. But these are just some of the things, and why I put it in a book, that people can go back to it if they know it helped them at one point in life, that you can go back and really kind of find different things that really work for you. And as we start realizing this, you can really find ways to make your body feel as good as possible, get yourself the best possible sleep, even if you're only getting 5 or 6 hours. And it's little things like that that can really fine tune what you do and how you feel.
Yeah, yeah. The gratitude piece, there's so many studies about that too. The nostalgia piece, I think, is really an interesting thing. I'll definitely be giving that one a try. I read before bed most of the time, and so probably the last thing I do is just make sure my alarm is set. But I try not to be on my phone aside from that last minute check of, is my alarm set? Okay, great.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Well,
But it's
and
harder some nights.
yeah, of course. And like, I just wanted to add one thing. Sorry to cut
Mhm.
you off there. Is that Dr. Tara Swart? She's one of the leading neuroscientists out of Johns Hopkins. Has been on the podcast circuit. Brilliant, brilliant scientist. And she walked through this whole. So people started doing visualization. It started like people to start praying, meditating, however you term it, of being able to close your eyes and visualize something that was going on. So when you're in these theta states, this is one of the things that can really, when you talk about giving you a jump start or a real hack to get you to the next level faster, is start visualizing how you want to see things go, how the perfect situation would go. Of like, if everything worked out perfectly, what would happen? And it's literally visualizing that. And so we talk about nostalgia and how those songs made us feel. So our brains, and this is like a wild thing, and this is what Dr. Tara Swart went through. If your eyes are closed and visualizing, our brains can't tell the difference if you're visualizing or actually performing what you're doing.
Mm, mhm.
And it's this wild thing that they did this test of. Dr. Joe Dispenza did it in one of his books, You Are the Placebo, of that it was people who were playing. They went. It was a gym exercise, and there were people who actually lifted weights, people who lifted no weights and just did nothing, and then people who visualized and pretended they were lifting weights. And don't get me wrong, the people who lifted weights had the biggest muscular gain and like the best improvement, but slightly behind them were the people who just visualized it, and it was their brains actually thought that. So when you visualize that thing, this is the crazy thing, because our brain can't tell the difference between what you're visualizing and what reality is your body actually feels that that is true. And it will
Mm,
actually give you that feeling in the moment. So it's one of those things of where people visualize, and this is what it gets into a little the technical on the quantum side, and Joe Dispenza gets into this end of, if you can find a feeling. So think of those nostalgia, the good, the bad, in between. So we want the good, right? So we want to be hearing the good song and really getting into that frame of mind. So it's the thing of essentially that in quantum, they say, is if you put that out there and that's, you have that feeling and you really have this unmistakable, I am giddy. This is so happy. This is the best thing that ever happened to me. And that's the feeling you're bringing out, that something in quantum science that will find you on your path, that you're bringing that opportunity to you. So that's, again, it's very quantum. It's some people are into that, some people aren't. But I always share that of, for me, I can't tell you the truth or if it's true or if it's not true. I just got to a point in my life, and I'm open about this, that I got so bad that I'm like, what what hurt can it do if I even tried this? So I was like, you know what?
yeah.
I'm just going to believe it, because I I'm already miserable. How much more miserable can I be? So it was just like, everyone I think hits a breaking point. So for me, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go all in and just assume that that's right, and I'll just go with the assumption. And I'm like, man, we do this with people all the time when we meet people or opportunities in our lives, of we go 100% into it and then it doesn't work out. So I'm like, why not this? Like, until it proves me wrong, why not? And so far, it's just one of those things of, it's raised my intuition at its strongest core of, when I was really anxiety ridden, my panic attacks were having panic attacks, that so my
Mm,
body never knew, was never stable. It could never really be calm. And being able to actually find calm, that feeling and that emotion, that even if it was for 10 minutes a day or 5 minutes a day in a quick meditation, I could at least get that little bit and feel just supercharged. It would give me like my second wind almost right away. So it was one of those things of being able to do this. It had the positive effect on me of, I realized the difference between being mentally tired and emotionally tired. And if you are just emotionally drained, a 5 minute meditation can make you feel like you've got 5, 6 hours more that you can go party afterwards. And that's if it's on that emotional level, it will really
mhm.
bring that. it literally just like it's like you're charging up your battery of like you're that part of you got drained and that's you plugging in real quick at the end of the night. So it's little things like that that if we really take into mind of how does that affect us, how do we feel, and start noticing your feelings when things don't really make you feel good and really make you feel uncomfortable. Don't let that be part of your life. Like it's
Right.
one of those like that's our intuition telling us of, and I think I'm sure anybody can probably rack through their personal history. I can tell you countless times of I always, I mean, one from I think partially my trauma and how I was raised, I became a people pleaser. And because of that, I would like just want a trauma bond. And it was just always like have that like whatever force connection. I was like, I just needed something. And it was realizing that and like being able to call that out. I'm like, man, that's not good. That's how you can unwind some of that stuff. So I'm going into my own personal story of that stuff, but I think you get the picture on it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, look, intuition is a huge thing, and it's something that I had to work to get back. I had that really, really broken down for me and kind of beaten out of me a little bit, and so that's something that I've worked in the past 6, 7 years to really get back. And I'm a firm believer in if your gut is telling you something, you need
Yeah.
to listen to it, and whether that is quantum anything or if it's just listening to yourself, your body is going to tell you more subtly than
Yeah.
necessarily you can put words to. So, very firm believer in that.
Amen.
Do you have a true crime story that fascinates you?
The Menendez brothers, that
Mm,
whole, the psychology of it is
yeah.
wild to me of just, man, like, and I guess maybe it's just because I can't relate of that. I mean, I didn't have the best dad growing up, obviously, but I had an incredible mother. And like, I grew up in a really poor neighborhood that I had a lot of friends who really didn't have one present parent in their life. So I actually felt
Mhm.
like I was ahead of the curve because of that. I just saw so many people who were just in that where parents who didn't care. Just it was unfortunate situations, and so my mom being like I like my mom to me was like a superhero. I was like, man, like I'm so lucky that she hovers over me despite everything. She still was at everything I did, and so yeah, it's having that like that relationship. I was like, I don't understand how anyone could ever do that to their parents. So I was like, for me, I just loved her so much. So that just threw me for a loop of like what happened there? And obviously, like you see, like the dad went through his thing. So yeah, that whole thing like that. When it became when Netflix redid the story of it, I was like, it was just great to kind
Yeah.
of see. It was huge for me. Like growing up, I was a young kid. Remember watching that in the news, and then I shouldn't be watching the news that young, but I remember it. And yeah, just that. Yeah, and then seeing like just how it captivated everyone again. It just like kind of hits that kind of whatever nerve of man, like you can have a lot going on for you, but inside, if you don't have a great mindset and you're not really doing right, man, like that should have been a beautiful family. It's just a shame of how it all worked out.
Yeah. I think a lot of us at that time, like we grew up watching news as a family. It was one of
Yeah.
those
Yep.
like, oh, it's 8 o'clock. It's time for the news. You go turn the TV dial over there and put the news on. And
Yeah.
looking back at that now, it's like, why were me and my sisters watching the news? I don't know. But now it's accessible just all over the place. It's hard to get away from sometimes. So
Yeah.
I almost wish that would come back where it was like, no, you have to wait until the 8 o'clock news comes on to get all of this information or turn the
Right.
radio on or whatever. But
Yeah.
so
Yep.
you've talked a little bit about your family and how you grew up and kind of how that has informed what you do now. And you've talked a little bit about research too and what other people have done. How much of what you teach and what you coach now, is there like it's 50% lived experience, it's 50% research, or what's the balance there for you, do you think?
Honestly, I don't know. It's a truly, I take everything on a case by case basis. Like, so I was coaching a lot of musicians and I've shifted more that I'm more in corporate America now. I'm working with CEOs and teams and nonprofit organizations to help them build organizations that can be strong. So it's kind of shifted back and forth. But for me, it's always been the pull of, and that's a lot of the intuition that we were talking about before of in the past year, I mean, I've run a consulting business, I run a music business, and I'm writing a book. And I've really got into the flow of what feels right in the moment. Of like,
Yeah.
I, for whatever reason, from like October to February, I wrote about 30 songs. And I don't think I've written one since. And it was just like I was in a flow and I really like I've learned to embrace of like stuff like I get really interested and then it loses my interest. And I've learned to stop forcing, if that makes sense. Of everything with my mom when my mom passed away in 2014, it rocked me and it hit me I always say I'll lead with, and maybe this could help somebody. So I'll share what I went through because I did everything wrong of how I handled
Mm.
it. I knew obviously the reality of it. I knew she was dead, so there was no like mistake in there. But I said it of like I treated it like she was on vacation and she'd come back. Of
Yeah.
like it was that was my way of kind of being okay with it more upfront, and otherwise it would have just I knew it was going to wreck me, and so I literally just kind of played that game for a while, and then I watched as like my brother, my sister, and my cousins they were slowly getting better, and I each holiday, each birthday, I was slowly getting worse, and I was like, "That's so." I realized okay, yeah, yeah, I did the short term fix, and it kind of helped, but long term, it really wasn't beneficial, and
Mhm.
yeah, it was just, I mean, I was very short term to my thinking, and that, like, looking back, I'm just like, man, how could I not see that? But it's so plain as day to me now. But then it was really tough in the moment, and it took years to kind of snap out of it. And it was really music that kind of pulled me out of it all. And that's really why I started coaching with it as well. My therapist had told me, "You're miserable. I've never seen you so down." And
Ugh.
I kept insisting that I wouldn't touch music because my mom taught me it all. I just thought it would be too painful and it would just hurt more than, and I couldn't get to that point of like, I couldn't even fathom thinking of singing or any of that.
Right.
So I cut it out of my life. And it was literally just, there was one thing that really made me feel alive. And just something I've always loved and I've been so connected to since I was a kid. And she was like, "You're just beyond miserable." And that's kind of where I went into some of the other stuff that I mentioned earlier of she's like, "How worse can it get?" And I was like, I
Mhm.
don't think that's maybe the best thing like psychologist said, but it had a real impact on me
Yeah.
because at that point, whenever I think it can't get any worse, I'm like, all right, then let me try anything else because
Right.
I'm just not, I was like, if I'm miserable, I know that's not a good path for me. So let me try anything else because I know I can't do that. And so it's not always the best way to jump from thing to thing, but I did that and it got me to the point of where I was always so on the move. And that was with industries, whatever I was doing. So, yeah, it learned like going through the calming, it slowed everything down. And for me, it's made everything much easier of that same thing I was talking about before of I was so high stress that everything always had to be so super fast for me. Otherwise I couldn't get it. Anything that was normal speed was just felt like just like a slow death to me of
Right.
just like nails on chalk where I couldn't do anything that I would needed over explaining or anything like that. So meetings were just like death to me. It's just and and for me it was like going through and I got diagnosed with ADHD a couple years ago of like that was every friend I talked to, they're like, "Oh, it makes so much sense. How fast you talk, how fast you think." They're like, "Geez, Dave," like it was there. Like they're like not to certain levels, but they're like, "No, like it makes sense." And so now, like watching it is like, man, I was like, it really learned me to get into. I did like a gene test of finding out what my body processes of like how that is. I highly suggest like do that for anyone's health of if you deal
Mhm.
with something, if you deal with chronic fatigue, a chronic anything, not that this is a fix, but this is something that you can learn about yourself and literally maybe help guide your doctor better or give them information that can really get them a jump start. I found out that I only process vitamin B12, which is very important for your energy in your body. I was just ever since I was like a teenager, which is abnormal. Like I'm always tired. I could always sleep. And it was just this weird thing that I needed almost too much sleep. And I was just always all the time tired. I was always yawning through things. And it ended up being that if I took like a normal multivitamin or vitamin B12 capsule, it was my body was only processing 30% of it. So he's just like, just think of
Wow.
it that way. He's like, where that would give someone like another boost to here, you only get to here. And they're like, so yeah, of course you end up crashing faster than others. And so for me, that was the super thing. And it needed to be methylated. If it was normal B12, it just didn't go through my body. Methylated, I get about 95%. So it was finding out those little things about myself of going through the mindset, going through my physical health, and like how do I like things? Where do we do? And that will switch with us as we get older, as we go through
Mhm.
aging and doing whatever. But literally, like, follow your body, follow your instincts. Like what does interest you? Find those things that make you feel alive because that's really what gets life feeling worth living, and that you love what you do. So like music did that for me, being able to come back from that and going through that, music just had this huge impact. And I was like, man, that's just this language that I feel it's like the one thing in the world that everyone can agree on. They at least like one song
Yes.
that's one thing that we can say it's unanimous. So for me, it's just music's always had that effect. And Yeah, it's like getting through sad moments and like happy moments. Like certain songs just always. That's why like the same songs play at the bar every weekend. Of like when people play Sweet Caroline, there's a reason. It just makes a lot of people feel good and remember that when they were in their 20s, going to the bar and just having a good fun Friday night.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think there's a lot to that too, of just you got to do things that bring you joy. And I'm glad to hear you say, like, you wrote all these songs for a few months and then you haven't really written something since and you've been working on this other thing. I have a tendency to do that too, where I'm like, I'm really into doing this right now and I'm going to work on it until it doesn't necessarily scratch that itch for me anymore. And then I just set it to the side. Like, one thing that I would say is, like, just set it to the side. Don't get rid of it. Don't trash it.
Mhm.
Because you could circle back to it in a couple months and be like, wait,
Yeah.
I heard this one thing and it made me want to do this one thing that I was working
Mhm.
on. And so, yeah, I'm glad to hear someone else operates that same way.
Yeah. And honestly, it's one of those things like I never like thought about it all that much, but like it
Hmm.
really does make sense. Like think about it with food of like you can't eat pizza. Like I love pizza, but after a certain amount of days, you're like, okay,
It's enough
I've
pizza.
had enough. So it's not, but it's like so we have that reaction so much, and
Hmm.
that's like one of those things. I'm like, I don't think people talk about it like at all, and it's like one of those
Yeah.
like, man, it's very normal. Like we can have those moments. It's cool, you know.
Yeah. I like comparing that to having pizza all the time. That's a good way to look at that. Now, you've already mentioned that you work with folks from you worked with artists. Now you're kind of in that corporate world. You're wanting to work with folks who are really impacted by COVID, so kind of the youth, young adults, and everything. Is the attention span crisis that we're talking about a little bit? Is that something that you're seeing across everything? Does it hit certain groups harder? Are the kids who grew up with COVID, like my youngest was in kindergarten when COVID hit, my oldest was in junior high when COVID hit. So are there certain groups that the attention span crisis hits harder than others?
It's definitely hitting people younger now.
Mm.
It's so the exposure of did a recent study where like I'm in millennial Gen Z that era of our brains are essentially in this pattern of still progressed of where we are with attention span based off seconds compared to the younger generation. It's just the access to social media that literally just had a reverse effect
Yeah.
on attention span the second it happened. Essentially, the longer you're alive without that, you've built at least part in your brain that you don't need it. Whereas others, when you just start with that and you have like, I mean, just think about when we were kids, like it's you talk about the muscle memory that we learned of being able to kind of go an extra step and I say like our generation is just they're the best investigators. They'll look into anything and figure out anything. And I think it's because we had to go to the library, get an encyclopedia, reference all these things. We were going through literally pages just to find something that made sense and had to read it. And it's like
Yeah.
it was finding like a treasure hunt of essentially what would actually fit your narrative and what you're going through. And now all you have to do is take out AI or Chat GPT and just say something in a few seconds. You've got everything ever written.
Yeah.
So we just have that internal drive that we will go a little bit extra. Whereas like if it's always easy for you, it's that whole human condition body being lazy thing of if you have an easier way, why are you going to go the harder route? So it's
Hmm.
actually good going the harder route. It's why neuroplasticity works is you can create new habits. Like it's the whole you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Our brain, a lot of people misconcept that, and a lot of people, I cringe because I used to say this all the time, but it's the people I know I can help the most when the whole old dog new tricks, or that's just the way I am. You're not changing me,
Hmm.
and I let them know I'm like, that's fine, but it's your choice. Like you could change, you don't want to. Like that's like own either way, but like like have that lead into that. It's that if you think you can't, you won't. It's the
Hmm.
like the belief of possibility. It's the having all that. It's truly the psychology of effect of like if we can get thrown off of our mindset. Anybody who's a sports fan, I like mentioned to you, I'm a basketball fan. I love to watch the COVID example. I love seeing when numbers kind of really jump out to like a absurd level compared to normal, just because it can really make sense of what the difference is, and you can make the common denominator. And so they played the COVID NBA championship that season in Disney World. So like all these teams were like posted up in the Disney resorts, and they play a bunch of these games, and there are people shooting consistently over 60% from 3 point. And that's just no one's ever done that ever in history. Steph Curry, who's the best ever, is like 51, I think was his best season, 51 or 53. So 60, 65 is absurd that people were actually doing that on a day to day. But there was nobody in the stands. So that whole element of pressure was gone. And
Yeah.
it's just one of those things of like, how do you react? And that's where I'd say to so many people of, people will see maybe someone who's more talented. I'm like, man, mindset, it's that whole, the mental game is so much more than what people make it out to be. It's like, if you believe and you're going to keep working, that will ring true over talent every time. Of it's you, and sports is such a great example. If the best athletes won the title every year, it would get boring. I'm like, and it just never happens. I'm like, sometimes it happens. LeBron had a little bit of a run there. He was the most athletic guy, and it was just kind of like that type of thing. But it's just so many more times mindset really does prevail. So it's having a really strong mindset, and that's something you don't have to be born with it. You can coach yourself. Neuroplasticity. You can do the neuroscience hacks and really walk through everything to really become the strongest version that you feel as confident and as positive about yourself as possible.
Yeah. So, as a parent to someone he's 12, he doesn't yet have a phone. Is there anything that I can do to support him in cultivating a better attention span as a parent? And then also, I've got my oldest is off in college, but is there anything that I
Mhm.
can encourage even him to do?
Slightly different things. So it's
Yes.
even at this smallest level with neuroplasticity, um, make them brush their teeth with the opposite hand. And
Hmm.
like literally it's literally just to get other parts of your brain circuits wiring and working a different way. Go a different way if you go the same way to school or the same way to work. Go a different way to work the next day. That at its core will literally just give the brain to start thinking outside the box a little. If you're a coach that you're never going to go outside the box and you're just playing within this sandbox and you're never going to go outside of it, that's all your brain ever sees. It's the whole, if you've ever seen an ant and you draw a line on a piece of paper, the ant won't cross the line. It's because of the mental barrier.
Hmm.
We know and we can see it. That line means nothing. It can walk right over and it would be fine. But it literally, that's the mental block. So a lot of us have mental blocks, and some of it's not our fault. It was just what we inherited of how our grandparents treated our parents, and how our parents treated us because of their reaction of how they didn't like how their grandparents treated them. And it was just
Right.
like following that line of it. Naturally, you could just have literally a little bit of a fragged mind from that. So when you really jump into it, we could always, anyone can get, if they're already good, they can get great. And I use the examples you talk about, the people who are the best at their craft, whether it's Viola Davis or Michael Phelps or Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant. You walk through everyone, they meditate, they visualize, they anticipated these things. And I like to use those names because these are people who are at the top of their craft, the top at what they do, and the
Yeah.
best at what they do. And they weren't too good to do that. That was something that actually made them stand apart. So that made people who were already great at what they did the greatest of what they did. So it really does can elevate you and can make you better. So many times people think this is just what my life is. I'm like, man, if you really challenged yourself, it could be exponentially better to a level you probably never imagined. So it's just all starts with how you treat your mind, how you're doing things every day, and just making sure it's fine to feel the negative and have stuff that's going wrong, but finding some positive throughout the day. Don't let that negative be everything throughout that day.
Yeah. And now we're talking about neuroplasticity. Can you really kind of explain that? And especially when it comes to attention spans, and how does neuroplasticity relate to attention spans? How does that interplay?
Sure. So neuroplasticity is the art of doing something new that your brain can adapt and essentially fire new neurons that will actually nerves that fire together, wire together. You create new neural pathways, and it literally creates essentially just a bigger map in your, like, if you almost think of it of wherever you live in your town or your city, that it's with neuroplasticity, that city could become a state. And then if you keep firing and doing more, that state could become a country, and then you become just bigger and bigger and bigger. So it's literally just that on a different level of the bigger you expand and the more you could do is your brain can keep growing and find ways to really activate. If they're not being challenged and it's doing the same thing, it will be really good at that little thing. So it's just the focus issue of if you're constantly distracted, if you have a phone that's always going to be distracting you or in that kind of mode, and that's what you were raised with from as a kid, that always affects you doing that. Wait until 12 years old. That's a great idea. I mean, Steve Jobs created the iPhone, and he was the first to say he wouldn't give them to his kids. He saw the numbers of what it was doing, and it's just one of those things. I think we all know. We don't have to admit it's like it's not the worst thing in the world. I'll be the first to say that, but it's just one of those things. It's like no different than we got to have some water, and we were talking about the different type of meals before. Of you can't drink soda for everything. Of like if you're drinking
Right.
soda constantly, even though if you love it, man, it's going to rot your teeth. It's going to make you feel awful. It's processed. It has that effect. So it's just one of those things of how can we fix that and put as much of that of what we're going through of realizing, all right, social media is essentially like having a soda. Can't have soda all day. Of like, oh, need a little break. So finding ways to schedule things, doing things outside, outdoor activities, building things, puzzles. things like that. Having that type of like hand eye and actually using your motor skills to like figure it out and actively think outside the box. There's not just like A to Z easy way. You kind of have to go out of your way and find ways to go through escape rooms. Doing that as a family is a
Mm.
really great way to really jump into that because it makes you work as a team and it really bonds you in that moment of what you're going through. So it's just one of those things of it's why so many companies do it for team building activities. It's just a way of you feel like you're more invested with each other when you've gone through something like that. You have now
Yeah.
memories. You've imprinted on each other to some extent. So once you have that, it's a real connection. And so finding different ways of being able to activate that and like really what gets people alive. And then, I mean, whatever, if it's your son, what's his favorite thing to do? And you really try to engage in that and then teach him what your favorite things are to do. So it's that match of being able to meet people at their level of, we should be able to share what our favorite things are. And it shouldn't only be one sided. It should be that you have that kind of equal thing. So those are the type of things of it will get his brain thinking that way. And that's the type of like I think was like that's the type of child I know I want to raise that who is able to think for themselves, be good to and kind to other people and think out of the box and be able to do stuff like that. So the more we encourage that and find activities that really promote that, that will really help that version of their neuroplasticity get to that what they really can maximize.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I'm sure if I tell my kids, "Hey, brush your teeth with the opposite," they're going to look at me like I'm a little bit crazy, but if I can explain it to them the right way, they'll probably at least humor me. We'll see.
I love
Maybe
that.
my older one. My older one's off in college, and so he's getting a lot of new experiences and everything, and it's like that's you're already getting it, but at the same
Yeah.
time, maybe if you get exposed to some other things at while you're off getting your own new experiences, maybe it can help. Now we're
Yeah.
talking
Yep.
about social media and it's I definitely agree that it's got a lot bad going for it. One of those is that social media companies pay billions of dollars to have these teams that design their apps, they design their content, they design the way that their whole platform is designed really to keep us addicted to it. How can one person's mindset actually fight against that? Or is it a lost
Is
cause?
It could be a partially lost cause, but,
Yeah.
on the what we can do is essentially set up the safeguards so that we know we have hard stops of putting the limit of how much you'll be on your phone throughout the day and
Yeah.
literally just have the phone go blank that you can't like, it won't let you reset until after a certain amount of time of if it's, 15 minutes every hour that you can actively use it, then that's all it is, and once it hits that limit, it blocks it. So it's just having that little kind of safeguard for yourself. It's no different than if you really think about it of like growing up, not everyone always had alarm clocks, but somehow people were always getting to work on time. So I think it's just one of those things when we make it easier for ourselves, we become more lackadaisical. We become more
Mm.
dependent on what it is. So it's, I always say I'm the worst offender with this with GPS driving of I brilliantly smart. She can look at a map and like take it all in and she like tries to talk to me. And for me, that's where I really need to challenge my neuroplasticity. It's one of my challenges this year because my brain just shuts off when I see a map. I'm like, I could just GPS it and it will get me where I need to go. I don't need to. I was like, this is I don't need this time. I'm good. So that's always like that's essentially just how I treated it. And that's just think of that on a larger scale. That's what kids are just being given right away
Yeah.
as like they're if you have people who are, I mean, if parents are going through, I mean, like my parents did, like having the issues of my dad is out and then my mom had to work 3 jobs just to make ends meet for us. And I was just, I literally trusted her, but was also very scared of ever crossing her. I had a really strong sense of justice. So she brought that out in me of like, but really honoring and respecting my mom. So I would never do anything wrong. But like going through, I was home all the time. I would have been on my phone 24/7. I'm like, I'm so grateful
Yeah.
I grew up when I grew up because I would have had a tougher life than than I did. So it's just having that. I've been able to make a career out of thinking outside the box and doing things a little bit differently and finding ways. And it's why my company name is another angle. Coaching and consulting is that how can we all have issues that we're going to have and how can we make something work for us a lot of times is and I talk cortisol a lot, but I always say is like if you I coach CEOs this a lot is a phrase that comes up is it's hard to work on your business when you're working in your business. And it's one of those
Mm.
things. It's why really successful business owners, they can delegate and trust other people to be able to get the job done so they can do the bigger things and take that on. If you're in the weeds constantly and you're just stuck in that and you can't get out of that, it's really hard to work on your overall picture if you're
Yeah.
just worried about that. So it's being able to find those nooks and crannies of what works for you, and having that really balance of like play to your strengths. What do you do really well? And then finding ways to be able to differentiate with that of, okay, how can you apply that? And yeah, it's really been well for me on, I've been able to find little niches in what I do. I'm not at the top of my market, but I'm happy. And that's
Yeah.
one of those things that I know it's, man, it's great to be happy.
Yeah, yeah. Now, I've had to set limits for myself because I did find myself, especially with TikTok. For some reason, TikTok grabbed me and would not let go. So I've got a limit on my phone. I can't be on it for more than an hour total a day. And that's probably even too much, to be honest. But I haven't had to necessarily put that on other apps because they just didn't suck me in the same way. And so I'm able to moderate those myself. But I do have a timer on my phone where it's like, nope, you hit your limit. That's all you get. And I'm seeing the same thing with my 12-year-old. He likes the VR headset. And
Hmm.
I had to put an hour limit on him for that a day. And I'm like, no, you're already on your Switch all the time. You're watching YouTube all the time. You're playing games all the time. All that's fine because you're taking care of your other stuff. But we need to have a couple of screens that are just limited. And so his Switch
Yeah.
has a time limit on it, which he doesn't usually even hit. But if it's a school day, if it's not a school day, then he'll probably hit it. But his VR headset, we had to really consider how much we limit it. And he gets a little irritated whenever his time is up. But the nice part is the technology does it. It's not mom saying, hey, you've hit your hour. It turns itself off. And so that
Hmm.
that makes a huge difference, I think, for whenever you're looking at things on your phone. If your phone has the feature to go ahead and set that limit, decide what's good for you, you can always dial it back. You can always dial it up, whatever you need to do.
Hmm.
I wonder also, does it matter what kind of content we are consuming, or is it more about how much we're consuming? Like, is there an hour is way too long to be on there, or is it well, what are you watching? Is it entertainment, or is it news? And then we talked about news earlier, so how much is it like you're doom scrolling versus you're trying to stay informed?
It's it'll all be individualized. I always
Yeah.
say, look at your algorithm, look at your search page of like
Mm,
what's it showing, and it's one of the things that I'll tell anyone, even my friends, on the end of it. It's something I try to sell of what I do business wise, but how does it make you feel? And it's like, all right, like, does something ever make you feel? Does it make you all feel great, or is it something that makes you feel bad about yourself? And that's where I say, take the honest accounting for yourself of how can we
yeah.
individualize it, look at it, and as we go through it, okay, if it makes me feel good, then we'll go with it. But if it's something that makes me feel angry or triggered or gets me like in a type of mood, why do I want to entertain that? And so it's the side of it of like, what do we really want to feed ourselves? And if we're feeding ourselves constant hate, anger, or something that's stressing us out, we're probably going to be angry, stressed out, and in that type of mode all the time. So
Mm-hmm.
we're usually a reflection of what we're looking at, what we're seeing. Is I just then always will challenge them like, what do you like? What do you want to be? Is that who you want to be? And then if it does, if it makes you happy, great. Like everyone's gonna be a little bit different. And there's no problem with that. I'm all about like people having. I mean, music alone. Of you go through, I'm like, no one's ever going to agree exactly on the same playlist. We're always going to have something slightly different, and that's cool. Everyone's a little bit individualized. So how can we really make that work for ourselves?
Yeah. The only time I think social media brings me any joy is when I go on. I am still on Facebook. I know that's kind of probably a dying platform, but I've been on it for a long time. So I go on Facebook and I like seeing like my friend that I've known since junior high, seeing her and her
Mhm.
kid run a 5K this weekend. And my friend who I've known since second grade just had a baby. And I'm like, wow, girl, I'm done having babies, but I am so happy for you. So
Yeah.
I
Yep.
like seeing those kinds of things, but then I also like whenever I go on Instagram and someone sent me a bunch of reels because they thought about me, and I go on there
Hmm.
and it's usually stuff that's going to make me laugh. So my algorithm is lots of, I'll call it like gummy bear content. It's very light.
Hey,
It's all good.
but
So
that's
the content itself doesn't bring me joy though. It's not when I'm scrolling through, it's not necessarily joy. It's really just a distraction to me.
yeah.
The joy, I think, is in did someone send it to you? Is this something you personally know? That's where it comes in for me. So I probably need to examine which platforms are serving me the best for sure.
Yeah, well, it's like I always say, like I don't think there's all bad content or like everything.
Yeah.
That's why I won't say everything with social media is bad. I'm like, man, if to me it's like there's so many people who are influential, who have an impact on people,
Mhm.
who, when people are going through a bad time, they hear something and it like has something that just like changes their life or like makes them act
Yeah.
like feel like they can be a better person or want to be a better person. So it's that's where I say I was like, if you're looking at that type of content, I'm like that's something really great to look at every day, something to be
Mhm.
grateful for, talking about being grateful for your family. And I mean, the basis of social media, I'm like, it really is so unbelievably cool that we can keep in contact with everyone we were friends with in college. Like
Yep.
it's, I know my mom didn't get to experience that. Like prior to Facebook, it was like there were so many people who were just gone, and it was so cool, like, when watching her later in her life, the joy it would bring of, I knew this person in middle school, and, like, I was like and, like, literally, I was like, that's, like anyone who's denying that, I'm like, that's so cool. Of like,
Yeah.
it's a way to really be able to connect and use it in a positive way. I know, we hear all about and unfortunately, there are the negative ways that people will spin it or use it, but it's in that mode for me that I'm like, "You know what? It should be we should highlight the positive. We should see that, and people shouldn't feel sorry for looking for that or having that be an inspiration for them."
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I also go on Facebook and see my HOA posts, and
Fair
those
enough.
don't bring a lot of joy. But, I guess you can't have it all good with anything, I guess, I suppose. So, how do you know when distraction is a habit versus it's a symptom of something deeper like anxiety or burnout? Is there a notable point?
Not exactly. It's going to be
Mm,
different by the person of what we do, and it's essentially it's really like a level of how present are you, how
yeah.
in the moment can you live, and how important is that to you? Because it won't be important to everyone. Some people really love to just think about the past, and that's okay. And some people just love to really look forward to the future, and that's really okay too. Like it's everyone's always going to be a little different, and I think that that gets tried to tear people apart too much, and I'm like, it's fine that we're different. We all kind of like. I think everyone's just trying to be happy or find a way to be happy in their life and lead their way to a better life or their family to have a better life. And um, man, if there's so many people in the world doing that, and I just love to see that get highlighted a little bit more than what it is. So, if like, man, it's really good out there. There's a lot of good and good people in there, and let's focus on the good as much as possible. So, more you do that, that's you're going to see that positive in your algorithm and what you're doing in your content. And it's one of those things that it's they've said it for years, you are what you eat, and having that effect of like our body's a reflection of, are we eating fast food or are we taking care of ourselves? And it's like having whatever impact on that that works with our mind and what content we take in. And it's finding that of at any point, is watching 4 hours of TV or internet a good idea any night? But if you're really like, if you've had a long week and you just need to, it might be good for a couple hours. But it's just, again, limiting that of, we had the rule like growing up of my mom wouldn't let me play video games on the weekdays. And the only
Hmm.
exceptions were if we had like a school day off. So if there was a weekday off for a school holiday, then we got to play on those days. So weekends and holidays, we got to play our video games. And oddly enough, like I still love playing video games, but I like literally my limit is about like playing 2.5 hours straight is like as
Hmm.
far as I could get. Otherwise, I'm like, I lose. I don't like doing it anymore. It just is whatever.
Yeah.
And that was instilled in me of like, I could only have it like at certain times. So it's finding ways to like get that delayed gratification. Everything is so instant that we need everything right now, or everything needs to be like right away and so quick. Um, Waiting for things, it really does bring joy of like, think about like if you plan a vacation, you could look forward to like, yeah, you have the vacation that will happen. It might be a week long or 5 days, but you and your family could look forward to that for a year. And like, that is just like, you're so excited and you talk about it and you hype it up. And like, it's something that brings you together for that period of time. So it's
Yeah.
really like finding ways of like, how do you like, for me, I love always having to look forward to something at work, in my, with my wife, and like what we do every, like week to week. So it could be a small thing of just getting your cup of coffee of like really like look forward to it. Like make it, and like the less you do something every day, it makes it special. If you do certain things only once a week or whatever the case was. Growing up, it was we didn't have a lot of money, and like a pizza on a Friday night was a really big deal. We got it like once, and it was every other Friday we got actual pizza. We got Elio's on the other week. So it was just like one of those things. But like that every other week, that made it like I looked forward to that all the time. And like it's
Hmm.
one of those like I think I like pizza too much now because of that. But it was just one of those, we can do that for ourselves with a lot of things. And the less we just have to do it all the time right away, the more you can space stuff out and really enjoy it, it gives more to the experience.
Yeah, yeah. I think when it comes to things like anxiety and burnout also, and you mentioned this earlier, just the self-examination piece of it, and how do you feel after? How do you feel after you've sat and you've done whatever it is that you're kind of examining? Do you feel more energized? Do you feel
Mhm.
less energized? And just kind of doing that little reflection exercise, not in like a, oh, I shouldn't have done that. You don't want to bring that guilt and that shame into yourself, but just in a
Yeah.
like, genuinely, how do I feel right now on the heels of that? And then you can
Mhm.
adjust moving forward. So you're doing your future self a favor rather than trying to berate your past self, which I think is probably a
Yeah.
trap.
Absolutely. And for me, a real big game changer, I love telling people to do this because I was the last person who would ever want to do this. Journaling, like
Mm,
actively journaling. It's our brain can really play tricks on us. Our brain can
yeah.
really make things. And I use this example as when I went through losing my mom, was going to therapy and I was just despondent. I was so sad. Just didn't know how to get through days, and I was had a back injury at the same time, so like the combination was just brutal and going through it. So I was just at this low of lows, and I kept thinking, I'm like, this is all the time, and it was in my head, like, I'm just sad every day. That's like it was the inner narrative I started telling myself, and I believed it was true. My therapist challenged me. She's like, "All right, journal it. You're saying it's every day. Like, just like write a little bit about your day, and just like, I don't care if it's two sentences, but hey, today was a good day. I had fun. Bye. Or like, I wasn't sad today, and it just like she like just write down one of those a day." And by doing that, I realized I was really sad 6 days a month, not 30. So that
Yeah.
broke that I'm sad every day right away. Like with my own words, I was like, oh, no, it's not as bad as what I was thinking. And I just wouldn't ever journal in the past. I never wrote that down. So when we write something down, it's the whole like people really love talking about like manifesting and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And so I always say like manifesting or prayer or what you're asking for of a lot of it is really believing it's going to be coming true and that you live towards that of what you are. And usually when you're in that moment of wanting to manifest, you're thinking of it with a pure heart. You're so like you believe it's going to be true in that moment when you have that feeling and you know it and you just feel that like giddy and whatever. And that's where I say follow those feelings, because if you're going for that and then you do have a setback and that setback feels like just like a dagger in the heart, it's not the end of your story. You already know how good it's going to feel. So your body's going to like get you to that point. But a lot of us, and I used to do it so many times in my life of I was really close to something great after one of these setbacks. And I just thought I couldn't take it and I walked away. And it was just one of those things of sometimes that it's that whole, if you're a mountain climber, is like right before you're at the apex of the mountain, your knees start almost like giving out of like, it's like you're that close and it's that you just have to like get over that little bit. And it's, once you get there, yeah, then it's easy and it's all downhill. But it's just that, again, on the mental side of we make that out to be of like, we think it's supposed to be the end and our body starts giving out because it thinks it's the end. So it's where we say the brain can be such a powerful thing. We are what we think. And yeah, I know I'm rambling a bit here, but it's just what I love talking about this stuff. It's what I wanted to write my book about of I was someone who sat in negative thought patterns all the time. And I had friends, I had people around me who loved me. I had a good job and I was pretty successful and I was really miserable. I was in
Yeah.
this negative thought cycle all the time, but it was people pleasing and I would people please until the point that I would burn out and I would just be so drained and then would have to sleep or just do nothing for days just to kind of regain whatever energy to do it again for a couple days. And it was just this constant drag of not really being able to be there or like be present in what I was doing. It was just the way that thinking about the past, obsessing about the future, not being present. It was truly, it was burning me out and making me feel sick. And being able to catch that, it's when you do feel stuff like that and your body's like giving out, like, pay attention, like, write down what's happening. Why do you feel that way? How long did it feel like that? Did it go away? And
Yeah.
like, start building that because there's so many times, and this is like the journal experiment on top. Like, I went through this back injury and so many times that I had these feelings. And then, like, for whatever reason, when I got to the doctor's office, maybe like six different things I wanted to tell him. And only got like two of them out. And it's like, no, I probably could have got him there faster, got him better treatment if I actually got everything down or wrote it down. So it's just a lot of that of I become this level of it, especially like writing music of like stuff comes to me when I sleep. And I'm like, if I don't write it down right away, I forget. And I think a lot of
Hmm.
us are like that of like really mean well, we think we're going to do it. You think of something really important and you forget to write it down. it's taking stock of that. When you feel those things, when you have it, write it down so you can remember it, so you
Yeah.
can go back. So many of us, we get lost in emotion. Something really bad happens and we forget all of what came and where it happened. And one bad thing doesn't always have to break everything else. I mean, I know I'm kind of going into other stuff here, but yeah, this of keeping stock of that, like know how you feel and when you see it, and remember the past, remember the stuff that's happened. Let that be like a good dictator with your intuition.
Yeah. The part of writing it down when you're in the middle of it, because you're right, once you get to your therapist or once you get to that lunch with somebody that you're going to talk to, you can be like, yeah, no, I'm just doing terrible all the time. But that's not always the reality. And I'm
Mhm.
glad that your therapist said, even if it's just a sentence or two,
Yeah.
even if that's all it is, just something you can look back on. I've even seen it where it's like a color tracker where it's like blue for a really bad day, yellow for a really good day, and you got all these colors in between, and then you have this visual you can look back on and go, "Oh wait, this is a lot more of this color than I thought it was going to be." And
Hmm.
so if you can do it a couple of times a day, then that's great, especially if you're going through something really difficult. But it can also be
Yeah,
really difficult to remember to do that. So, so
that's for sure.
how do you advise folks to focus when they are faced with issues that make it harder, like chronic pain or chronic illness or chronic stress or
Mhm.
even things like financial pressure or just general uncertainty that comes from not living in privilege all the time?
Is no matter what, and honestly, I can tell so many people who come from privilege, and I've met them, and they're miserable. Like it's
Mm.
like so that's not always the indicator of what I see. It ends up really being of like, how do they feel of what they're going through? Of like, are they actually enjoying what they do and finding some joy within that is it's really, really important to have something that really like what lights you up and know that if like what like if there's something like I found everyone I've ever met, there's something quirky that like is really super important to them that like hold on to those things. Like I think we've kind of been taught or coached or like I guess maybe intimidated by social media of like kind of not being leaning into the quirky or the weird of like what makes us different. It's finding those things. A lot of those things usually is what makes you feel like you can be goofy and silly and laugh and like just have that young child kind of feeling that you used to have when you just like nothing was worried. You'd play hide and seek and you'd laugh like hell when you get caught. And it's just like going through that type of feeling. So what makes you feel like that, like try to find that and like think about that nostalgia of wherever it is so you can remember the feeling and then try to like see like within your day to day what are things that kind of give you that same similar type of feeling. Our body usually does give us the right direction or at least tries to point us in the right way, in that way. So I know I'm kind of getting into the little of that quantum stuff again, but yeah, that's I'm big of like the energy you put out, it tends to match frequency wise.
I'm here for the manifesting, and I love that it's starting to become this discussion of, well, is it manifesting woo woo or is it quantum
Hmm.
mechanics at
Yep.
work here? So I love that we're starting to hear more and more about that, but I'm definitely here for that. And I hear what you're saying about the you got to try and find something that's not in your current situation and the nostalgia, but I think the reality is when you're living with something like chronic pain, that can just be really, really hard to do. Are there any tips for, we talked about the journaling and only taking the 10 minutes before bed, that kind of thing. Are there any other tips for if you're facing something that's just chronic and always weighing on you? Is there anything around that?
Yeah, it's finding at least for 2 seconds a day,
Mm,
something that you're grateful for. Of like, that's where, again, even in the pain side of finding something that's grateful, it doesn't fix it. I, you're talking to someone I've dealt with. I had a little autoimmune disorder with my neck that it's been bad for years. I lost all the nerves it was a brachial plexus
mm,
injury. And the pain was just mind bending of I would just have migraines and vertigo
mm.
constantly. And it was just like kind of dealing with that. Um, I got through a lot of that and I don't know if it fixed anything, but it was just having some hope at the end of the day of it, of like finding a little bit of that. Where's it going to be like? And again, I'd say probably 95% of me was still saying, sucks. This is terrible. Tomorrow's going to
Yeah.
suck. And it was just going through that. But similar to what we were saying with setting, besides finding stuff to look forward to, even the small things of me getting out for a couple minutes and being grateful that I could walk as much as I could, that I didn't need to be in a wheelchair or something like that. Finding that of like that not making it up that like not understanding someone's situation. Obviously, when you're in it, like I'm the first person to say, like, I didn't want to be around people. I get that, like when you're going through that, but also being grateful for what do you have, like what can be there, and I'm just channeling that for a little bit. And like for a long time, I was probably like 95% in that negative, but I was never 100% all of like everything was in that, like everything was about the pain. I had to find something to look forward to and something to be grateful for, and just having that little bit of something, it gives you a little bit of hope throughout the day to like have some a little positivity and just at least make you feel good for a second.
No minimum effective dose of of
I mean, the
gratitude,
more
just
the
whatever you
better,
can find. Yeah.
but I understand the people who will come from that. There's just some days where it's so hard to even do that. That it's like
Right.
the thought of it feels like it's so taxing on you. And it was just one of those things. I made it my literally just core as something I'll share that I do every night now. And it's to this day, I've started it back then. I started getting an image of who I wanted to be in 1 year, 3 years, and 5 years. What do I want to be work wise? Where do I want to be pain wise? Where am I going to be? And this truly helped me get through it. And it's just applying the two of something you're grateful for, something to look forward to. And I thought every day of, I had really bad days where I was cursing and I was just had no temper control at all. I was just really probably a bear to be around. And at the end of the night, I asked, did I get closer to where I want to be in 1, 3, or 5 years or farther away? And I used that whole thing that I mentioned before of I know that I'm harder on myself than anyone else can be. So
Right.
I know that that's in my DNA. That's how I feel. That's just part of me. So how can we use that to our advantage? That's something that I have. If you have something that's like a trait that you can utilize, try to find ways that in another way that really can like benefit you. And for me, it was I hated going 2 nights in a row saying I didn't get close to that person. So was it an up and down, like one night up, one night down? A lot of the time, like so much. But it was, it at least gave me days where it wasn't all bad. And it just, it broke up a little bit. It wasn't 100% of the time. And then once you get that little bit, I got to that point of, and I share this about, so I started meditating, praying deeply, probably like 3 years ago for 2, 3 hours a day. And for the longest time, I did it for, it was tough for me to like get a rhythm. I could only do it for like 30 seconds to a minute at first. My overactive brain, it just wasn't for me at first.
Right.
It took a lot to calm down and get to that. But I would like, so I got to the point where I was doing like 15 minutes. And I would like actively say, I'm like, man, I feel so great after I do that. I would like tell my family or my friends, I'm like, I feel so great. This is great. And literally they're like, all right, do it more. Like if it works for you, great. And so for me, that was the thing that really worked for me. And that's why I say chase what works for you and anything in that mode. So for me, that really worked. And it got to the point of like, yeah, I used to be on my phone and watch TV. And I've prioritized that 3 hours of meditation is way more important than 2 or 3 hours of TV in any given day for me. So it's
Yeah.
just, not everyone can make that time swap. And I'm just using, I was out of work with a back injury at the time. So I had a lot of time on my hands. So it's, I know it's 2 hours blocks are tough for people. Like some people don't have 15 minutes, but in those 15 minutes, can you take 2 to 3 to just really think about what you're grateful for, think about what you want to look forward to? And it's finding little moments of your day. And I then started noticing the pattern of myself of I felt really good when I was thinking about one of these things that's going to happen and like how I'm really like getting better because of me looking forward to. I just was able to make the connection of those were some of my best days. And part of it was probably from journaling at a certain point, but it's just like it clicked with me of like, I feel better when I do this. And the days that I don't do this, it becomes noticeable. I'm moodier. It's just not, I'm not as, I don't feel as good as a person. So it was because of that. I was like, what made me feel better as a person? And what didn't make me feel dragged down or like it was bothering me? And I just really started leading with that. Easier said than done. I've gotten to the point I still say I struggle with it. I'm getting so much better than what I've used to, but it just is something in the way I think of. It's made me up of who I want to be and who I wanted to be probably when I say that 1, 3, 5 years, if I went back to those 5 years of where I was, and this is something I can actively say I'm grateful for, the more you do this, the more you can think about this in this fashion of where I was 5 years ago, right now is just unfathomable. I would have been like, hey, you could have thrown me through 10 times the trauma and I would sign up for it if I know that that was what was at the end. And so I started treating it that way. And when I started actively taking stock in that, and I say like, try to take stock in your thoughts of what you do, how you feel. It's important. It's really like you matter and anything that you can do with that, if you want to better yourself, go through that. And it all, like, for me, it was all within my thoughts and my mindset. What was I thinking every day? And I use the example of, once you make it in a number or make it like real, of like a percentage or anything like that, it becomes a lot more real to you than like just when you think of, oh, this happens throughout the day. Um,
Mm.
I got challenged by a mentor, try to catalog every negative thought I had throughout the day. And I was just like, oh, I was like, okay. But he's like, but you have to write it like Bart Simpson style 5 times every time any negative thought pops up. So I was just like, okay, that's, as I thought I would get through it. And after an hour, I texted him. I was like, I quit. I can't. But I never put a number. And I was just like, this is bad. This is not
Mm-hmm.
okay. And it's just one of those things. I was unconscious to it. I wasn't mindful of it. And it's a lot of things of what we have in life, of like what's important to you and what really matters, you take care of. And it's no different of it with gardening, and using that metaphor of the plants that you take care of and you water the right way, they grow. The ones that you don't, go another way. So it's just that's what you do in your life. And like, what are we watering? What plants are we watering? Are we doing stuff for ourselves, or is everything for everybody else? And it's being able to
Yeah.
find that balance. Like, some people really come alive doing acts of service for other people. So that's like the whole love languages things of, everyone's going to be a little bit different, and that's totally okay. But you really just find what works for you, and really find the network of people that like match with you personality wise, of like minds, the way you think of, I mean, for me, I can be in a I love that I can be in a kind of like an executive boardroom, and then also just be at a musician's retreat. And I can have equally as good a time at either or. And it's just one of those things for me of like, those are two things that I've high level thinking and strategy, but then also creativity in the same mind. For me, it's I say musicians and CEOs have a lot in common, and the artistry of it, of they're artists in their own way of what they're doing and what they create. And it's for me, it's like, that's what I see, is I just see creative people. And I've always loved, like, hey, like, I love talking with you. I love being able to talk with people and just like bounce ideas of, man,
Mm-hmm.
like, if you see something that I'm messing up on, like, I actively get told, I know I've got to slow down with my speech. Surprisingly enough to you, I'm very slow compared to what I used to be. I used to be much faster. I'm one of those things I'm learning to slowly dial back on, because, man, it's just too much for anyone to hear, unfortunately.
Look, I'm keeping up just fine, so I don't, I don't know. So we've talked a lot about social media in particular being on the bad side, not necessarily the devil, but it's in how you use it, how you consume it. But are there any specific apps or tools or systems that you actually do recommend that are technology based, or do you think technology is just always a part of the problem?
I mean, you've got the mix of, there's certain apps. So like, I've got one, it's called CrossMath. That's one that really gets you analytically thinking outside the box. So there are always apps of, if you're doing more strategy or more multi-level stuff. So when you talk about, here's a really great example, because especially within everything with the attention span of millennial Gen Z age compared to current generation, of what you're seeing of our video games, that parts of our prefrontal cortex are kind of different, based off the fact of, we had to start at the beginning when we were in Donkey Kong or Super
Mm-hmm.
Mario. And you had to learn to like be perfect up to a certain point, and then you would get to a point and you stop and you'd start from the beginning again. So again, the delayed gratification of it. Now, a lot of it's like Fortnite, where everything's just new game, new game. And it's just, there's
Yeah.
no consequences or going backward. It's just, no, you start over again. So, it just makes anything, like, if something's constantly restarting, it numbs you. It's too much of it. It's oversaturated. So when it gets to that point, it's like anything in our lives. So really, it's like with social media, when we're talking about it, I love like saying that social media is like soda. Yeah, it's okay. A lot of people like it. A lot of people engage and use it normally. It's not something that I think is gonna, using it just that little bit. It's like having soda, but you don't want to drink soda all the time. It's really will mess with your health and like have such an effect on so many different levels. So it's just knowing that, of being able to limit it, and like having stuff. It's why we don't eat dessert for every meal of the day. Of going through that end of stuff. Of, it's just one of those things. Why would you? And it's yeah, you can, but why would you? And it's, unfortunately, now when you have younger brains that don't get fully developed until touching these things, and then they're, all it is just this constant of, there's almost no consequences of, like, think
Mm-hmm.
about that in the societal wave that gets ignored for a long time. That's scary. Of like, if I can just do whatever, well, the game restarts. Once I could commit this crime, but the game restarts. So it's just, so that's the pattern of thinking that you're putting into people, of like, that everything's always going to be okay. You can always get away with, like, there's no consequences. And it's one of those things that it's a slippery slope. Once you start playing with that and that becomes very normalized, then that is very different than among generations. So it's really it's
Yeah.
slipped already just from two generations apart. Of it's just crazy of that difference of just having that different type of video game.
Yeah, yeah. You're making me glad that I have apparently passed on the gene of achievement hunting in games. So I am a big like, oh, there's this achievement. Let's go play the game a little differently than I have before and try to get that achievement so that I can do it, so that I can have it on my list of like, yes, you've done all these things. Well, my 12-year-old definitely has that of, oh, I'm trying to get this one achievement. Oh no, I did this. I have to start over back at the beginning. And to make sure that I'm getting the right things stacked up. So you're making me glad for that. But you mentioned meditation, and I'm thinking things like the Calm app and those kinds
Mhm.
of things that are there really to try and help support you with those kinds of things. And even though it is an app on your phone, it is trying to help keep you from being distracted. So I'm glad to hear you say it really is just how you use it and what you're using it
Hey,
for and how it's impacting you personally.
yeah, I mean, it's one of the things and like funny enough, so I always say like it's one of those if something pops up and I'm like, what's the worst that can happen? I'll give it a shot. And that's how like the whole meditation thing. And then when people just on the interesting level of if you ever heard of the gateway process, that was a whole CIA declassified document and people you can look it up. It's on the CIA website. It's I'm not trying to spread a theory, but essentially it was just the powers of meditation of what it could do, how it literally can make you feel at euphoric levels and have this really, really positive impact of what you're going through. So it's finding that there was real positive effects from that. So that's pretty much what they uncovered. There's more to it than past that, but summing it up, that was where it is. So when I saw that, I'm like, all right, that's something that's pretty. I was like, if that was at a government level and studied at that level, obviously they were using it for other purposes as well, but it was just one of those things. I'm like, all right, then there's got to be something behind it of
Hmm.
why there is, and then also why some people find such peace with it. And for me, it's the best way to like kind of describe it is I felt like my life was almost my entire life was like on fast forward. And now I'm finally on play. I'm not like in that fast forward state of everything kind of like in that hyper mode. So being calm has just been able to like slow things down of it's weird of I'm really present. I remember every day, but every day goes so much quicker. So it's like an opposite effect. In the past, it was every day felt so slow, but then time was zooming. And now
Hmm.
it's the opposite effect of I remember almost every day, but like 4 months ago feels like a year ago. It's just like it's kind of had a warped effect of it. And it's been nice. Just I don't know if that's just me, but it was just it's having that of I finally feel like I can breathe and actually not always being just that hyper stressed and high cortisol type level.
The years are or the years are short, but the days are long. That
Yeah,
saying
yep.
of that means it's a happy, fulfilling life kind of way. If it feels like
Great
I'm
reference, yeah.
getting everything out of my day, but boy, all of a sudden it's 3 months later.
Absolutely.
I get that feeling a lot. So you've worked with lots of different folks in lots of different ways. What's the most surprising breakthrough you've witnessed with a client? Something that still sticks with you?
Man, it was I had one really tough musician that I had worked with, and it was just wouldn't get out of the negative thought pattern.
Mm.
And it was really being able to dig into no matter what, it was just everything was a joke and everything just not gonna work. And I was just too determined of I was like, what I just need some crack. I was like, I tell people, I'm like, you could say no to it, but to at least give me one thing that at least kind of works for you that I can like try to get something to get working and like get something rolling and then see how you feel from there. And I was just getting that like literally stonewalled was like couldn't even crack anything. And it was the weirdest thing. But then I was like, all right, maybe I'm the issue here. I had to talk or I was trying to force conversation I was going through. And I sat quietly with the kid for 3 hours. No words. It was oddly uncomfortable, just a lot of
I'm
quiet and
sure.
like
Yeah.
a lot of times of pulling out your phone for a second and it's like doing all that. But then after he broke the silence after 3 hours, and then we ended up talking for 2 hours after that. And it was for whatever reason that's all what that situation needed. And it was being able to notice for me that hey, my normal way of talking it through and essentially being belligerent until someone finally like gets talking and then we go. I was like, it's for me, it's just always I've been able to kind of feel emotion off people, and I it's if I see someone's down, I'm gonna, if there's something I could do to, like, even just hold a door to make their day a little bit better, I'm gonna go out of my way to try to do that. It's just, I try to do that anyway, but it's just one of those things of when you see that, I've always empathized. And I guess it's just the feeling of when I was young. I know being as a kid and being that exposed to like some of the stuff that I was as a kid that I shouldn't have, man, it just made me realize I don't want other people to feel like that. So I've always
Yeah.
just, I hate people being sad. Like I understand that there is a moment for sadness and you could be that, but that's where a lot of it all came from, of just, I always had this feeling of I always wanted to help. And it was frustrating for me because I don't have a lot of patience. So it's tough to help people when you don't have a lot of patience. So the meditation really helped me get to that point where I can have patience. And it's, the things I was like, I just can't believe how I used to be to where I'm at now. And I still know I'm far from where I want to be, but it's just crazy of seeing that difference of the more you put into it, and the more you kind of think and really make it the way you live live your life. When you talk about manifestation, I love that it's becoming really normalized.
Hmm.
And so, and it's my take, and obviously, I'm not an expert on manifestation on a, I'm not trying to pretend I am, but it's just my personal version of the way I see it that I think is the hack for it. I think that a lot of people will take a small amount of time of their day, maybe 5 minutes or less. Like if sometimes in a prayer, 30 seconds or a minute, where you pray to God or you're praying or you're manifesting, I want $1 million or this. And so you say that for what, like maybe 30 seconds. I'll give you
Hmm.
5 minutes, right? 5 minutes of the day. I get, even if you sleep 10 hours a day, and that's more than most for some people, what are you doing those other 13 and 13 hours and 55 minutes? Are you thinking about your problems? Are you going through how everything could go wrong? Or are you thinking how everything could go right and how you could manifest what you want?
Yeah.
And for me, the hack and what I believe is the method to get closer to it faster is how much can I think about that manifestation throughout the day? And I started going to anytime I had, and from that writing exercise I went through, of I remember doing it and hating, and my hand starts hurting once I literally, it's like wired into me now of, but yeah, it's just, I hate that feeling. And it's like, as soon as I feel that, it's like, all right, how do I go to something else? How do I break that pattern of like, stopping that and finding that pattern of, okay, and it takes a while, and it's no different than the whole, when I was saying getting angry and how long do you stay angry for. It's don't beat yourself up when you happen, you're going to have the up and down of it, but it's try to get a little bit better every day. So I just do that reverse principle of how quick can I get to calm, and I went from 5 minutes, and now I got to the point where I almost said the F word, and I got the first two letters out and I stopped there. And I was like, so I've gotten to that point where I still feel it, but then I'm able to kind of catch it. So it's training your brain. You can do it. It's absolutely a thing of, do you want to? And okay, don't beat yourself up when something happens. But if you're actively trying to get better every day and that's your intention, that's the plant that you're watering, and that's the plant that will eventually grow.
Yeah. Uh, Something that you just said in there really reminded me of the thing where it's like your first reaction is what you've been taught your whole life. Your second
Hmm.
reaction is what you have the opportunity to really learn and grow from. So if your first reaction is to get really mad, that's okay. That's how you've been brought up. That's how the world has raised you. That's how your parents raised you. It's how you've learned up until this point. But if you can take that after that 90 seconds and really kind of turn it around, like that's who you're trying to become. And that's what really matters. That's what really makes that difference.
Absolutely.
That's something that I've tried to work on for myself, is like not beating myself up for my first reaction to things, because it's not always the best first reaction, and that's okay. It's okay that it's not the best first reaction. It's that second reaction, that final reaction, that really makes the difference, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, and I saw the bad pattern of so many people as I started just meeting and talking to more and more people. When we talked about, like when we first started, and I talked about the anger side of what good decisions do we make when we're angry, but we
Mhm.
all know the bad ones that we make and the things we shouldn't have said, shouldn't have texted, shouldn't have whatever. So we're cognizant of that. We get that. I started seeing a pattern of, in those states when people did say those words and made those mistakes or did whatever, the amount of people who are in situations now paying off that mistake still. And that's where the math side of me really challenged, am I going to let 5 seconds of anger mess up the next 10 years of my life or
Mhm.
next 20 years of my life? And it's just one of those things of, for me, I was like, I need to get better because I knew that I had this, the ADHD ended up making a little more sense of it, but I knew I just had a real temper control problem with certain things, and not never to a really awful way. I was never like I never hurt anybody. There was never any of that, but it was just one of those things. I didn't like it when I get angry. Like I just
Yeah.
it's that same when I said I don't like people upset of I get angry at myself for getting angry. It was like it was just like kind of like this self-depreciating thing of like, man, it was a vicious cycle. And the only way to break it was okay, like just stop being so hard on myself. Of it's okay. And it's like being able to step off a bit. I mean, when I said that I challenge myself every night, that was something when I talked to my one old therapist, we're still friendly, that I reached out and I said I do that. And she's like, you might want to do every 3 nights or 5 nights. She's like, one is a little excessive. And I was like, that makes sense. That's like she's
Yeah.
like, that's like you can go a couple nights without like checking like a barometer of what you're doing. But that was just for me, it was something that worked in the moment and I just
Mm.
stuck to it. And I mean, I did a lot of it, a lot of where I get a lot where the gratitude side, it comes from if you know like Tony Robbins priming
Mm-hmm.
exercise. It's fantastic. Highly recommend it. I did it for like 3 years every morning. The last year, it's been more spotty, but I still love it, and I get back to I did it 2 days ago, and I'm, like, already I'm excited to do it again. But it's very simple of, you go through a breathing exercise of where to sit, and then he walks through the same process. And the whole thing about gratuity and then the breathing and getting everything, the idea is it's trying to sync your brain and your heart together and like have
Mm-hmm.
those moments of those nostalgia type, like really type feelings of you're hitting those spikes of what really can happen when your brain and heart can get into a coherence. It's just, it can be beautiful. That's where everything is like euphoria. So it's being able to try to trigger into that. And it's finding wherever your problems are, what can solve your problems. And it's,
Mm-hmm.
the whole point behind the meaning of his priming exercise is that life happens for you, not to you. And if we're going to be the victims, then life happens to us. Everything is reflective. But it's the art of, and granted, some awful things happen to people out of their control.
Right.
That happens. Like I'm not pretending that it doesn't, but if you just take the defeated attitude of everything happens to me, you're more likely to have victim stuff happen to you. It's just your RAS. You're kind of going into that realm of it. So for me, I'm like, how can I prevent it as much as possible? And my
Mm-hmm.
way is, and I agree with the way Tony presents it, is life happens for you. And then when you start realizing everything happened, no matter what, the good, the bad, the ugly of it, you got to right here, right now, because of everything that's happened in your past. So that happened for you to some extent. If you have any ounce of happiness, that happened for you. Like you got to that now. And it just got to the point of like I keep that in mind because of that exercise and kind of doing that, I guess, so often, of really dialing into that. How do we really just appreciate, okay, where did I come from? And I mean, so I actively had the thing. I had a really tough day at work about 2 weeks ago, and I was drained. It was just really busy day. I felt like I got my butt kicked. It was just one of those type of days, and I got to that point. Like I was feeling a little sorry for myself. Wasn't my best attitude. I just was just down and drained, and did my exercise of the night of where I want to be, and I was thinking about how that day went, and I was just in the thought of, man, how can I be grateful for this? How can I see this a little bit
Yeah.
differently? I know I'm not trying to be toxically positive about it, but I'm like, how can I find the good in this? And the good I was able to find was, if you told me 15 years ago that these were my problems, I would have done probably crazy things to make sure that that would happen. And
Yeah.
like, just, or probably would have been like, I don't believe you, no chance in hell. Of like, so it's one of the things, be grateful for where we are and the problems. And like, sometimes if we have responsibilities, it's a blessing to have responsibilities like that. Not
Mm-hmm.
everyone can get that. So it's like having that core level, because it's something that we all have something to some extent where really when we break it down, we can be grateful for. And even if it's just dialed into your phone to think about it 4 times a day, it's going to be something a little bit closer than what, or more than what you do now. So it's just finding
Yeah.
like little things of how you can do it. And yeah, if you can't remember it, set 4 alarms randomly throughout your day and just have it pop up. What are you grateful for? And just think about it in the moment. And it could be all 5 seconds or 10 seconds, but you're at least breaking up some of that high cortisol. Or if you're going through a really tough time, it's just letting your body, it's, we've been told it since we were kids, take a deep breath when everything gets really bad. It's letting your nervous system take a deep breath by just like doing that gratuity between your brain and your heart. You're letting your nervous system just take a deep breath.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. The just the idea of you got to take it throughout the day a little bit, but sometimes you do have a really really bad day, and if the
Yeah.
thing you can be grateful for at the end of the day and you can't think of a single thing that you can be grateful for, that's okay too, because then you can be grateful that you never have to do that day again.
Yeah.
You're never going to have the same days. There's Groundhog Day is a movie. It's never going to be exactly the same. And it wasn't even exactly the same in that movie anyway.
It's a great one though. I love Bill Murray.
Oh my gosh, it's a great movie. I need to make sure. I'm pretty sure my oldest has seen that movie. I need to make sure my youngest has seen that movie because
Nice.
it's such a funny one. So Bite Mark sent this question ahead of time. She would like to know, what is your favorite poem?
Ooh, The Road Not Taken, Robert Frost.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. And we've definitely had folks come on here and kind of give their reason for that being their favorite poem.
Mhm.
What speaks to you about that poem?
Is to think outside the box.
Mm,
I know that's not the I know I've heard what people think is the actual interpretation or what the actual is, and I agree with that to an extent, but for me, it's always how art like, again, how art makes you feel, and for me, that was always just of, don't be afraid to go just because things are different or less traveled or however you wanna deal with it of, no, like, that could be where the excitement is of,
mm-hmm.
don't always discount everything just because other people do it, and so it just hit that level of me and hit me more later in life than earlier, like, I wish I really thought of that level to it now, but it was the do things that make you feel good, don't worry about everybody else, don't be the people pleaser, do what you think is the right move to go either way. Yeah, sometimes the unpopular opinion is the better way for you to go.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I definitely think whatever speaks to you about the poem is what you can take away from it. It's the same with songs. It's the same,
Mhm,
like you can listen. It's funny to me with music because you can listen to a song for 10 years and not
mhm,
actually have it hit you. And then one day you have some life experience and the lyrics just hit you differently all of a sudden that day.
mhm,
That might not
yep,
have been the artist's original intent. Maybe the intent was the first 10 years you heard it. Maybe the intent was after something happened and you heard it again and it hit you a little bit differently. But however it speaks to you in that moment, I think is the right answer. That's
yeah,
it.
absolutely.
Same with most magic. Well, it is time for the magic moment of the stream. If you could wave a magic wand and eliminate one common opinion or misconception surrounding mental health, what would it be?
Hmm. That it can be controlled and that
Mm,
people know exactly what's going on with it.
mm-hmm.
I mean, I come from the like old school mentality and I lead with it just from my experience of the fact that I have what I have and like it's kind of been realized recently. And everyone I knew was just then not surprised by it. It was just one of those I was kind of taught as a kid of no, like that's weakness if you feel bad or
Yeah.
anything like that. And like that especially like when I say I definitely can feel for whatever reason I've always felt people's emotions strongly, especially if like it's a really high positive or a low negative. I've always felt like a pull, and I've been told I'm sensitive because of that, like constantly. And I'm just like, I was like, and I think people think I'll take it as a negative. I'm like, it's actually been like one of the coolest things for me in the world of like, it's
Yeah.
helped me avoid, I think, bad situations of like, my body's clearly told me like, hey, don't. And there's so many things of like opportunities I've had that I'm like, just didn't feel right. And I walked away. And it was just, I've had some of that at least always kind of like with me. So yeah, it's like being able to discern and have that is massive.
Yeah. Yeah. Being able to listen to yourself is a big thing. And you've brought up the millennial kind of Gen X. I'm in that same range. So
Yeah, yeah,
I think we're a year apart, you and I.
yeah.
So I'll throw out there that my kids gave me a new term for that I hadn't heard, but I had to look it up and it's actually called this. It's a geriatric millennial. And I take offense.
Nice.
I take high offense to that.
Never felt older. I love it.
But I think that there's a lot of those generational differences whenever it comes to mental
Mm,
health of the way that we were raised versus the way that
mhm.
kids now are being raised. I've seen a lot. There's a lot of hope there. There's a lot of
Yeah.
like, okay, my oldest would come home and be like, my friend just went to therapy and he came to school the next day and we were talking about some things that he talked about in therapy and it's like that openness of how do you even know
Yeah.
your friend is in therapy? I would have never known that one of my friends was in therapy, but they're talking about it. They're being more open about it. My youngest is one of the most sensitive kids I've ever
Mhm.
known. And I have not heard one single time recently that that's a bad thing. So
Yeah.
I think it's come a long way, and I'm looking forward to it continuing to. could just evolve in a good way.
I agree with you. And the wild thing is, I was so anti therapy for the longest time. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't believe in it. I didn't think that that was possible. And it was all a result of my back injury when I was, that whole thing that I was telling you that I went through. After a certain amount of time, they required me to go see a psychiatrist. And
Mm.
I took it as, and again, I could be wrong, but it was my viewpoint at the time. And I was in a really negative state of mind. But I thought they did it to try to embarrass me or something like that. And not
Mm.
sure if that was the meaning, but either way, that's how I felt in the moment, and may have been an overreaction, may not have been right, but it was just how I felt, and it was like, all right, but I did it, and I just was one of those like, all right, I'm not gonna let this be a problem or be difficult. I was like, I'll go and do whatever. And so I had no intentions of it going in, and it changed my life fundamentally. And that's why I share what I share now. If anything, I probably overshare about it. And but it's just to the extent of so many of these things I figured out with my mindset started with my what happened in therapy and just it
Yeah.
truly it's just the act of like journaling, no different of it's taking stock in what you're doing and seeing the patterns of what we do. So much of what we do is Joe Dispenza talks about this a lot about people being unconscious to their conscious thoughts. Of you think about, and the example I love to use with it of you get in the car to drive home from work, you put on a playlist that you love, and there's a couple of these songs that are making you feel really good that are in whatever. And before you know it, that car ride that was 20 minutes, you don't know how you got home, but you got there. Of like as you go, it's your body was in the default mode network of like going through
Yeah.
that in your brain of it just kind of went into that zoned out mode. And so when you're there, everything's kind of very autonomous. And the more we rely on cheap dopamine constantly, is the more we'll be in that default mode network. And we're just kind of in that whatever. So the idea is somebody challenged me with this, and it was they know how to challenge me of like really like I told you the thing of someone's gonna I'm gonna react based off how someone feels about me, and that's like I'm gonna let them control me like that. And so it was like someone he learned to challenge me in that way.
Well, I'm going to post your socials one more time. And while I do that, I'm just going to give you the floor. If there's anything you want to talk about, you got coming up. I know you got a book out there. You want to let folks know where to
Yeah.
find it. I'll just give the floor to you and post these socials for folks to connect with you one more time.
Yeah, you got it. I'm going to start releasing some snippets from Navigate the Noise that will be coming out later this year. It's all about mastering your mindset and just really zoning in on what's happening, what happened with COVID, just dealing with realistics of this is not taking an opinion or running with it, just like dealing with facts of, hey, our attention spans have gone down. This is an issue. What can we do to counteract it? And just the basic, there's a lot of neuroscience hacks and little things that we can do on a day to day basis of, hey, if you start incorporating these, you don't have to do them all at once, but do a little bit here and there, and it's good for your brain. It's actually going to do something that's going to help you. If you have Alzheimer's in your family history or anything like that, and I'm not giving any medical advice here, but I'm just saying in general, it's shown that the more you use neuroplasticity, it could slow down the effects of Alzheimer's or have it show later in life. So if that's in your future, or if that you're worried about that, do something for your neuroplasticity to change it up. So when we talk about this autonomous zone, that's where we want to stay away from. So it's how can we be conscious of what we're doing and in general, and this is where the challenge was. So it did come back to me. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
I got said, are you going to let your body tell your brain what to do, or you're going to let your brain tell your body
Mm,
what to do? And the more we let our brains are in the control, but a lot of us get to the point when you're that default mode network, you're letting your body run the show. We're in control of our own life and we can take stock of it. And there's no shame in not being able to kind of figure it out in the moment. But the more you take stock of it, really put intention on it, little bit by little bit, you can kind of get that conscious control a bit back.
yeah. Yep. I like that. Well, folks, don't forget to go through and connect with David on all these platforms. There's LinkedIn, there's his website, there's Instagram. Make sure that you're connecting with him for sure. I think that you have really given some folks a framework for kind of cutting through the noise today and maybe taking back control of their own focus. So I hope that everyone gets a lot out of that. And David, just thank you so much for being here and for keeping it real with us. I appreciate your time today.
Thanks for having us, and thanks for hearing me ramble. I know I can go on little rants there, so thanks for indulging me on that. I appreciate it.
Listen, we love a good ramble here for sure. Most
I
definitely.
love it.
Well, folks who are here with us live still, give me just a second. I'm going to switch over to a Be Right Back screen and disconnect with David. I'm going to give you a puzzle to work on, but don't go anywhere because I'll be back. That was David McKee on attention spans and navigating the noise. The idea that anger and frustration only really live in your body for 90 seconds, that's just a minute and a half. before everything after that is just you choosing to keep carrying it, I have been thinking about that since we recorded this. Next time your kid loses it over something small, or you get cut off in traffic, or your inbox looks like a dumpster fire, it's worth remembering you are allowed to feel it. You're allowed to react to it. But after that, you're choosing to marinate in it. I loved all the stuff about neuroplasticity. Brushing your teeth with the wrong hand, taking a different route to work, sounds almost too simple to matter. But we treat our attention like it's fixed, like we're just stuck being distracted forever because that's how the world is built now. David's message is that your brain is not done changing. You can train it, the same way you train anything else you care about. I think about that with my own kids too, watching how differently they talk about mental health compared to how my generation did. There's a real shift happening, and I think it's a good one. It doesn't mean that everything's figured out, but it means the conversation is more open than it used to be, and that matters hugely. If any of this hit home for you today, do me a favor and hit follow or subscribe wherever you're listening. Leave a comment or a review if you've got a minute. That genuinely helps this show reach more people who need to hear conversations like this one. And share it with somebody who's been feeling scattered lately, because odds are they need the reminder just as much as you did. Thanks for listening today and for being a part of this community. Remember, we are all just trying to hold it together out here, and sometimes that means accepting that even tacos fall apart. I'll see you in the next episode.